it makes someone feel better. What about their feelings?
I don't give a shit about their feelings. I'm old.
I never wipe my tears away. I'm not ashamed of them. I wear them proudly. Like small, wet, salty badges of emotional truth.
Welcome. Guess what the record is that the U.S. set last month? Let's see, anybody in the live stream chat? No, it wasn't temperature. Let me bring up, this is also call-in Friday, more political than my religious channel. For those of you who are new here, I'm an atheist. I've accepted the fact I'm going to hell. I'm okay with it. But on this channel, I like to talk more politics. But, you know, religion and politics, they intertwine so much. So much. Let me make that clearer. Maybe, and just like yesterday, I was live on my religious channel. Today will also be banning day, so be careful what you say. Because Myron is in a real bad mood this week, and he's just been banning people left and right. Yesterday, I banned someone for saying this is boring. I'm like, why do you feel the need to tell people what your internal emotions? I mean, gone. Wasn't heat, wasn't temperature. Well, the via coda, I think you're right. I would also accept deficit. But, you know, but you got to be more specific. You got to be more specific. The debt is always getting bigger, so it's technically setting a record every day. But that's not exactly what I was going for, but you're on the right track. What did the United States set a record in? I've been tracking the financial numbers, the budget and so forth for the United States, I don't know for how long, many years. Yes, don't hurt my feelings, otherwise you get banned. This is a dictatorship. This is not a democracy. You have no power here. YouTube has power over me, and I have power over you, the peasants. That's how it works. But what did the United States set a record in? Interest payments. I've been tracking it for I don't know, 10 years. And it's always, interest payments per month has always been like low side 26 billion a month, 33 billion a month. We are now up to $70 billion a month. Let me bring this up here. Now, some of you might ask yourself, so what? Or say to yourself, so what? What's your point, Doug? Who cares? I just want to play my Xbox. Do people play Xbox anymore? I don't know. Switch? They just want to play their Switch. So this is June 2023. Total receipts. The total money coming in last month was 418 billion. Outlay 646 billion. I wish I could run my household like this. Wouldn't that be fun? Medicare 137 is the biggest, and Social Security, National Defense, Health. What's the difference between health and Medicare? Is it basically this is more welfare and this is more like old people? Net interest, 70 billion. There it is. Only 9 billion less than National Defense. But why is net interest such a big deal? Because you can't really lower it. You can't default on it without causing chaos. Like you can lower National Defense. You can lower health. You probably can't lower Social Security. You can't touch that one. You know, veteran benefits, 37 billion last month. Okay, I'm an American citizen. I'm a patriot. I love this country. But I gotta admit, there's a lot of slush in here, veteran benefits. Because I personally know, should I say, yeah, I have friends who were in the Army. And they kind of got injured, but not really. And they're getting like $300, $400, $500 a month for like a tweak to back. I mean, if you want to save money on the budget, this is where you save it. Like there's hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions, collecting $300, $400, $500 a month because they got a bad back. and they happen to be in the military. Is this going too far? Is this pushing buttons on the right? I hope so. Because you know what I'm saying is the truth. So my question to especially the people on the left, who I love dearly. I mean, if it wasn't for people on the left, we wouldn't have musicals. We wouldn't know what to wear. We wouldn't have good music. We need people on the left to make us feel better. But for the people on the left, but if you want a plumber, you want someone on the right. What should we do about this? Oh, let's go down here. This is cumulative. For those of you who don't know, the fiscal year end for the United States is September, not December. And so this is from October to June, July, August, September. So 3 months from a full year. Look at our deficit, 1.4 trillion. For those of you from Idaho, 1,393 billion is the same thing as saying 1.393 trillion. I know it's complicated, but you just move the decimal three to the left. What should we do about this? Nothing? Is this okay? By the way, the deficit that we're on pace for this year will exceed Trump's final year, even during COVID, with all that stimulus. And we're not in a crisis. There's no COVID going on right now. No crisis anyhow. There's no recession right now. We're kind of funding a war, but we're not directly into a war right now. But even if you say we are, like we've always been in wars. So my point is we're actually okay in the economy, and yet we still have this huge deficit that's on pace for a record. What should we do about it? Nothing? Here's what I think we should do about it. Well, there's many solutions. When it comes to deficits, assuming they matter to you, and for I think most people on the left, a lot of people on the left, they don't care. But if you do care about deficits and debt, there's only two things you can control, and that is receipts and outlays, right? Now, if you're someone on the left, you want to focus on receipts. If you're someone on the right, you want to focus on outlays. This is another big difference between left and right. So let's cater to the people on the left right now, because we love them so much and they are so needed in society. Who else is going to give the hugs? What could we do on the left side of this to receipts? What can we do? Any suggestions? Now, the thing that I've heard for decades is tax the rich more, right? Isn't that what we hear? So let's do that. Let's see what happens. I've done this before briefly, but I really want to try to keep this simple for people who are not good at math. What should we tax the rich? Right now, the top tier tax rate is 39.5%, I believe. Or is it 37? I don't know. It's something like that. How high should it go? Someone in the live stream chat who leans left, tell me. Maybe there's nobody who leans left here. I'm a bit more concerned about my personal deficit and debt at the moment, to be honest. Well, of course, I totally understand that. Why wouldn't you be? What should be the top percent rate? I've heard a lot of people say that it should be where it was after World War II, where it was in the 60s, at 70%. So let's pretend we're going to, starting next year, we're going to tax the rich, whatever that means, at 60, let's say, was it 70%? I think it's 70% in the 60s. Okay, so what we do is we take this number here. I made it too small. we take this number here of, I don't know if you can read it. It's 1.69 trillion. How much of this money comes from the rich? Like the super rich? What percentage? What's your guess? So all the money coming in from individual income taxes, some of those come from poorer people, some from rich people. How much of this comes from, let's say, people who make, I don't know, over $500,000 a year? The answer is about 50%. Do you know that? About half of all the tax revenue that comes in from people who are rich. And they currently pay 26% average income tax rate. Did you know that? A lot of people think, oh, the rich people don't pay any taxes. That's not true. Okay, so I'm going to bring this up. Let's make this bigger. See this top 1%, 1.5 million people, average tax rate 26%. This is 2020 data from the Tax Foundation. They're probably right-wing conservatives though, so we can't trust them. The average gross income, 2.7 trillion. But that's at 26%. I wonder if I can get, yeah, let's bring up my spreadsheet. Oh, it doesn't come up. This is getting so convoluted so fast. Okay, so we got, let's do this in terms of a trillion. We got 2.78 trillion. And that's taxed at 26%. Let's tax it at 70%. So we take 2.78 trillion times 70%. That's 1.9 trillion. Now they're currently paying 0.2. Whoa! I apologize for that. That was very loud. If you leave and never come back, I don't blame you. I got hotkeys, and that's why that happens. 26% times. Hopefully, I turned it down fast enough that I saved your ears. Currently, they're paying roughly 0.7 trillion. And if we raise the tax rate to 70%, they'll pay 1.9 trillion. So what's the difference between these two numbers? $1.2 trillion. Okay. $1.2 trillion. Would we still have a deficit if we tax the rich 70%? We get 1.2 trillion more. The answer is yes. If you look at this. See, our deficit's 1.3 trillion so far. So if we get an extra 1.2, we still have a deficit. So think about that. If we tax people who make roughly 500,000 or more a year, we almost double their tax rate from 39% to 70%. We still have a deficit. This tells you one thing very quickly, that the problem is not on the receipt side, the problem is in the outlay side. This is for people who care about deficit, and I know a lot of people don't. Until the poop really hits the fan, then they start to care. So if the problem is can't be solved on the receipt side, well, actually, it still can be solved on the receipt side, but this is what you have to do. If you want to get rid of deficits and debt, you just can't tax the rich. You have to tax everyone. You have to tax people who make 50,000, 80,000, 100,000 a year. Then you can get rid of the deficit. I mean, you got to increase their taxes, maybe not up to 70%, but let's say we made the top tier to 70%. People who make 100,000 a year to tax them 50, 60%. People who make 50,000 a year, tax them maybe 40%. Then you can get rid of this deficit without making any real cuts to the outlays. I wonder how many people here would be for that. Not too many. So what can you do on the outlay side? I don't know. I don't think you can touch Social Security because that's money that people directly paid in. That's their money. You can cut health, I guess. Medicare, I guess you could cut it for people who don't need it, but I'm not sure how much savings you can get there. Income security, I think that's another welfare type program. You can cut that, but then people would cry, you're hurting the children. You can cut national defense. But look here, if you even cut national defense to zero and you don't do anything else, you still have a deficit. I think there's a lot of stuff you can cut here in veteran benefits. You could cut education to zero. I'm all for that. I think education should be closer to local. Actually, on the revenue side, you can also tinker with estate and gift taxes, but it's so small already. Like even if you tripled it, it's not going to make a dent. Same with duties. You could even tax corporations more, but you see how small it is compared to individual taxes? You could triple corporation taxes. It's going to make a dent, but you're still going to have a deficit. So I think we're screwed. And when your interest payments are due and you're running a deficit, basically what you have to do is print money to actually pay interest on the money that you already printed. This is the definition of a Ponzi scheme. The United States of America, its finances, is a Ponzi scheme. You don't have enough money to pay for something, so you print it. Eventually that causes inflation and interest rates to go up, which causes deficits to go up, which causes you to print more to pay for the interest payments. Anybody disagree with that? What I should do is I should make it make this open to the public here. Let me give you the link. People always say that you should not treat a country the same as your own personal finances. I say, why not? Like, if you wouldn't do this with your own household, I don't think you should do it with a country. The argument is that you need the government to stimulate the economy during recessions, during wartime, all these different issues. But it's the same with your own household. There will become emergencies where you'll have to take out debt, which is fine. But you shouldn't just assume that it can go on forever. But the MMT people who think that, debt doesn't matter, they say, who cares? Oh, I forgot to pin it. Hang on. I also want to play Seth Rogen and the freedom of... what's the name of that movie? Sound of Freedom. I want to chastise atheists here next, but we'll stay on this topic for a little bit longer if someone wants to say something. This is why I started mining crypto. Oh, you're mining it actually, Roger? You're not just buying it or buying and selling it, you're mining it? So you got like a huge computer system? You're sucking up a whole bunch of energy? You got a high electric bill. You got solar panels. Social programs are lately the only problem. I wouldn't say it's the only problem. Part of the problem is our demographic shift in the United States. We got more old people and less younger people, so Social Security is a problem because technically, in theory, the young people paying Social Security taxes are supposed to pay for the old people, but I've paid a boatload of Social Security taxes over the years. It'd be really nice if I got that back, because I'm supposed to get that back. I was promised by Al Gore years ago. He put it in a lockbox with a combination only he knew. And that when I got old and gray, that he would say, okay, Pinecreek, here's your combination. Take your money back out with interest. But no, I don't think that's going to happen. And I'm going to cry. Doug, that video will sober up the left-wingers in here regarding debt. No, I don't think so, Joystick Jedi, because there are many people who lean left who literally do not care. Like, there's a lot of fiscal conservatives on the left, but there's also a lot of non-fiscal conservatives on the left who literally do not care. I mean, if it's a choice about feeding the children or having debt, I don't care about debt. We got to feed the children. This is how they think, right? But they don't realize that when you are running a country and you get into fiscal problems, that, and I think that history bears this out, that you can end up killing more of these precious kids by not caring about debt. Yeah, this is why I did what I did with that little spreadsheet. And I know you couldn't probably see it, but it really nails home the fact that if we were to double the top tier income tax rate from 35 to 70, that we will still have a deficit. Military spending and sanction theft are the issues. Donnie, I don't know if you just got here, but did you know that if we made the military budget down to 0, we would still have a deficit this year? 0. We could make the military budget 0, and we'd still have a deficit. Do you understand how serious that is? When the top line items on the expense side is put to 0 and we still have a deficit? What do I think about people who say we should go back to something like the gold standard? I'm for that. It's going to cause a lot of pain. But at least it will standardize cash money onto something that's real. Crypto is more real than cash money. But my fears with crypto is federal governments around the world could also just put a stop to it at any moment. Make it illegal. Just like they made the gold standard illegal, or they confiscated gold back. What year was that? Like, what I know there's probably a lot of government officials who dabble in crypto, so that it probably won't happen because they would be hurting their own interests. But if the federal government, US government, said owning crypto is illegal, what are you going to do? If someone wants to call in who disagrees, I would love that. Another option on the revenue side to appease the left a little bit here is a general sales tax. which I think is a viable solution. For me personally, it wouldn't bother me that much because I don't spend money really. I'm a producer, not a consumer, like most middle-aged white men. Ooh. No, but seriously, like, do I go to the mall to buy stuff? No. Women are the consumers in this country. I think it's like 60%. You can fact check me on that. If all the women in the world died, I mean, the economy would halt to a stop. But a general sales tax would bring in a lot of revenue very quickly. And it would incentivize saving instead of consuming. Another idea is a flat tax. Everybody pays the same amount of tax, let's say 17%. But that's the same thing as basically increasing taxes for everyone. And it will hurt the poor people more. Sean Kelly. You got to turn off your YouTube tab.
Hello?
Hello. Oh, you're the Irish guy.
Yeah.
I could tell
know,
just
but I mean-
I could tell just from you saying hello. Pretty
Yeah,
good.
but I'm interested in economics as well. I was thinking, you know, the Bank of International Settlements.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard about them?
You talking
They're
about
like the
exchange rate
they're
stuff?
they're like the bank that regulates central banks, and like they said recently that the whole monetary system is like a giant Ponzi scheme. So they cannot. So you know the way the central banks need like 2% interest rate, 2% growth per year to have inflation stable or something. That's the only way they can do that is to maintain economic growth. But if we want to solve climate change and all that, we can't have inflation go up by 2% a year.
Why are you so fixed on climate change? Every time you call in, you want to talk about climate change. Are you get over it? You're gonna be no. Let me
What?
put. I was gonna reassure you everything's gonna be fine. But Sean Kelly, we're all gonna be dead in 20, 30 years. Just accept it.
So why don't you like borrow loads of money? Would you rather go to debt, default, and save the planet, or default and not save the planet?
I rather not save the planet. Let's let it burn.
So I would agree to just borrow loads of money.
Let's
print
walk
loads
into
of money.
extinction hand in hand. let's throw off these burdens of life.
Well, what do you think? I mean, I would be surprised if the U.S. goes bankrupt, because I heard that there's a lot of countries leaving the petrodollar. Have you heard about this? The petrodollar,
Yep.
like countries are not going to be using the petrodollar.
Right? Yes, that's true.
So once the petrodollar is gone, because the U.S. Army relies on the petrodollar, so when the Chinese and the Russians stop using the petrodollar, then the U.S. is fucked.
Are you okay with huge amount of deficits and debt for the U.S.?
Well, obviously not, because they're going to have to collapse on that. You will not be able to pay back your debt if your petrodollar, if your currency decreases.
True. It'll be much harder.
So let's say the global demand for dollar decreases because they boycotted because of politics.
You live in Ireland?
Yeah, the Irish rely on America. 70% of our economy is.
What's the
based
debt like
there.
in Ireland?
We had a really high debt now, but we have pretty low now. It's quite surprising. I thought we were never going to pay it back, but we have paid it most of it back.
Do you know how they did it?
Conservative political things and mainly
Oh, wow.
right-wing policies.
You're right. You're actually speaking the truth.
Yeah. Well, I'm not a fully liberal as well, but I also believe that climate change is. I mean, I think right-wingers should care about climate change just as much as lefties.
Every time you say the words climate change, an angel gets his wings. So keep going. 50. Look at this. I don't know if you can see it, but 58.8% of GDP is 2019. But they were back in 2012, 2013. Ireland was at 120.
Yeah, so you could do it too. The Americans I think the Americans could easily do it. I mean, I didn't even feel anything when this shit was going on.
Did Ireland
We-
institute a general sales tax in 2013, 14 in there somewhere?
They probably did a few things, but
Probably you don't
the
remember. You
economy's
live
fine.
there.
Well, I'm not. I'm not really. I don't really like pay that much tax or anything. So I'm just saying that
You don't go to the
fucking
store to
Irish-
buy things.
So anyway, the Irish managed to survive with a high debt. So the Americans could do it too. How much is your debt for GDP? Is it
Right
100%?
now, depending on what you can consider as all debt, but I think it's 120, 130%.
Yeah, so that's not like Japan is even worse. So basically, I think if you want to solve the debt and climate change at the same time, I would collapse on the debt, collapse the economy, get out the foreign military. The military is the biggest polluter ever. Cut the military by 80%. Make everybody go local. So basically, just a giant recession. Basically, the only really, or you'll have it better. You can do it better, but it's not as fun.
You don't have to. I actually am not opposed to your idea of defaulting on debt, but I wouldn't default entirely. Like, you could say, take a 20% haircut, 30% haircut on debt. So if you bought a U.S. bond, 10-year bond for $1,000, your principal, you only get $800 back. But what that will do, though, well, you tell me, what do you think that's going to do?
Well, the trust, the people who borrowed it, who gave it to you, will not give you it back again. So those lenders, those rich people that borrow to the bank, to the government,
They're less likely to lend again, right?
but the government could also print money out of thin air. Because isn't the Federal Reserve half private, half public?
It's actually supposed to be neither.
What is it?
It's supposed to be just a completely independent organization that is not supposed to be biased by the public or the government. It's supposed to be based on data and goals, set goals of certain 2% inflation and maximal employment.
Yeah, but they basically print money out of thin air and borrow it to the government, and then the government has to pay it back. Is that it, basically?
Yes.
So why don't they make the Federal Reserve public and have it as it's the same thing, really. But don't make the government borrow from them. Just make the government print money out of thin air and not have to pay interest on it.
Or just
get
rid of the Federal Reserve completely and have the government only spend what they bring in.
So how would you but why do all these countries around the world have Federal Reserves? Is that because private banks need them? Or?
It is to help stabilize the economies. So instead of having huge peaks and huge valleys, you can sort of make it more flat. So in times of deep recession or depression or war, that the government can actually stimulate the economy. And they do that through the Federal Reserve printing money or lending money.
But wouldn't they not be better if they just printed their own money without borrowing it from a central bank? Without paying interest on it?
Well, technically, it's the same thing, technically.
Yeah, but they still don't pay back with interest. If they were to print their own money out of thin air, the government, they wouldn't have to create interest on it. Well, they could lend it out to private banks and they would have to pay interest on it, but they wouldn't have to pay. I don't know. It's complicated.
Are you more a revenue guy or a spending guy? Like, if you had to, let's say you were tasked with the goal of getting rid of the deficit, would you focus on revenue or expense? Or you could do both, but which one would you lean more?
Well, I don't think in the future we can grow the economy forever, infinite growth. So if we have a lot of debt, let's say, and we need to pay it back through growth, I don't think we'll be able to grow using extractive industry, like polluting industry. So we'll have to find a way to pay back the debt.
You got a one-track mind. Everything I ask you bring it back to climate change. Almost everything.
Climate change is probably the most important problem out there. That's why all the rich people are talking about it. The WEF, the world. Well, I mean, Klaus Schwab, all these people. That's all they think about.
Maybe
they also.
You could be right. Let's look up Let's go to NASA's website, shall we?
Let's just put the money in space. Just put the debt in space. Let the aliens deal with it.
I
Or
always
let's
like.
just have a world debt default. Just to have the whole world default on their debt and do it again. I think that's what the Greeks did.
I love antagonizing people like you with charts like this. Global temperature. Look at 2016 is warmer than 2022.
Yeah, but this year is like supposed to be record heat or something.
Well, that's just
'Cause of El
weather.
Nino.
That's just weather.
Matt, you'll be thinking like in 10 years' time, oh my god, that Sean guy was so right.
Oh no. I hope I live to be 120, so when you're like 80 or whatever, I can visit you on your deathbed and say, "See, the world didn't collapse. The world's okay."
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I am a bit hyperbolic about it. I'm a bit too
Yeah.
share a lot about
You,
this with
you
my
need to
family
get
and all
you
that.
need to get a new hobby. Or start a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I found out why this used to be 104 sea level rise. And then they, I think 3 or 4 months ago, dropped it to 97, 98. Oh, it went up a little bit since then. And then I have a friend who works for NASA, and I said, hey, I don't have an explanation here. But the explanation is, where is it? They basically forgot to factor in the continental shelf sinking towards the core of the Earth, therefore artificially causing the sea levels to rise. They forgot to factor that in their chart, or they didn't factor it in the chart. So then they just, because I saw this with my own eyes, because every week I looked at it, and then all of a sudden the whole chart just dropped by 2 standard deviations. And what's going on here? And it's things like this that lowers the confidence people have in the data regarding climate change, because there's just so many factors that you have to take into account. Like, how do we take account the amount of clouds out there, like, that's reflecting sunlight? The more heat you have, the more evaporation you have. The more evaporation you have, the more clouds you have. The more clouds you have, the more reflection of the sunlight back into space. So, like, how do you actually, and I know they have models to actually do this, but it's not easy.
No, clouds is the hardest thing to model in meteorology.
Yeah.
But they roughly know that clouds do cool down, but they also heat up the planet as well. So they do both.
Yeah, they do both, but the main source of heat is the sun, right? And so if the sun's not getting
the main
in,
source, but the CO2 only is like 0.4% of the atmosphere, but that has
very
a big
good.
impact.
You know that. Most people don't know that.
Yeah, well, I study, I research this as a hobby, you know.
Your mama learned you good.
So I'm just panicking about this, and I think that
Are you seriously panicking?
I think we could do a World War II style effort. Forget about the debt. Let's go to war against climate change and the biodiversity collapse. Print loads of money. Go make the military solve this problem. I think the military, instead of going to war, can plant loads of trees. And
Okay, I got to do some. I got to be your therapist here. Are you okay if I do some psychology on you?
Well, I think climate
Are
change.
you poor?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. You're poor. Do you feel like your home country's economy is giving you a rotten deal?
No, I don't worry about the economy. I worry about the environment and climate change.
No. Did you hear my question? Do you feel
Actually,
like the state of the economy in Ireland is giving you a rotten deal?
Jordan Peterson says that rich people care about the environment more than poor people. So I wouldn't consider myself that.
But that's not what I'm getting at is usually people who do not like capitalism talk like you.
No, I'm more middle, but I'm probably more extreme on the environmental side. I'm in the middle in economics, but I'm extreme on the environment.
Okay, so you honestly think you're a moderate when it comes to like socialism and capitalism?
Yeah.
You don't think
and climate change stuff, I'm more extreme.
Because so when you say,
well, to be fair, to solve the environment and climate change, you have to be extreme, to be fair. You can't really be conservative. Can you be conservative and solve climate change in the environment?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, how would you do it?
You could eat.
Let's say you had 5 years.
You could eat a little less meat. Like if you eat steaks 5 times a week, you could cut it down to 1 time a week. That's being a very moderate, reasonable human being who's not being
let's say
drastic.
you had 5 years, let's say, and the world ends, and you have to solve in 5 years. What would you do in a conservative way to solve this problem?
Nothing. No, seriously, I'm not joking here. If you said 5 years left, I would do nothing. I would enjoy life. In fact, I would say buy that gas guzzling SUV, eat as much steak as you want because we only got 5 years left anyhow. Have fun. Have your electric ovens, your gas grills, whatever you want. Have fun, enjoy life, and let's all get in a big circle in year 5, hold hands, and go down with the ship like the Titanic.
I think we're probably gonna go there anyway. I'm.
How can you live your life like that?
Well, it's because I know the science. When you research the shit that I research, you will become a doomer. I'm a doomer. There's a lot of people.
I know you're a doomer, but I'm asking, like, how can you live your life as a doomer? Like, every day you're sad. This is my definition of woke. They're sad, miserable people. You're one of them.
I'm trying to be happy here talking to you. Okay. Anyways.
Well, okay, yeah. Talking to me, a non-doomer, you get happy.
Other people to make them sad, like I feel less sad.
Is that why you actually call in? Because you actually want me to push back on you so you can feel a little bit better?
No. I just like fighting. But anyway, so I'm a conservative. So conservatives fight. Men fight. But anyway, so I'm just saying that
you're a conservative.
Let's say next 10 years, I'd say a conservative politician could solve climate change in its own way, and a lefty, the communists will probably solve it in their own way. And
okay, if you were dictator of the world, how would you solve it?
Well, I'll tell them the truth. I'll tell them it's really bad. We have to change our ways. So I'll tell them, guys, it's not all about debt and economic. We'll have to reduce our energy demand. So we'll all have to have a lifestyle of probably like this 18th century with less. So we'll have to like.
So you want to go back to an 18th century lifestyle?
No, we'll have to give loads of money for insulation and.
And where's that money going to come from?
Well, they can just print it out or tin air or. So like
we're just going to make money up, which will cause inflation, and then if inflation causes prices to go up, and that will really affect the poor people. What are you going to do now?
Okay, well, the poor people. Okay, we'll tax. Okay, let's tax the polluting industries. We tax the fossil fuel industry, the sugar, the meat. We tax all that about a lot.
And what if we tax them? Let's say we don't even tax them. Why don't we just take them over? So every amount of money they make, we just 100% of it goes to the government. Maybe we should do that. Like why tax 50, 60, 70% when you can just take all of it 100%?
Okay, let's just tax not that much, but we'll tax it a lot like that. People reduce it. And then we spend that tax money on insulation, on renewable energy, on forestry and all that, and sustainable agriculture and all that. And then the private sector will change their ways so they won't invest their money. And I'll tell the financial industry to invest in sustainable companies. So I'll force the pension funds.
What if these sustainable companies that they're forced to invest in are poorly managed, poorly structured? Like, this is the problem. When you force people to invest in certain industries or certain companies that are bad, there has to be some type of well,
obviously some of them will default. I heard 90% of companies default in capitalism, but the 10% that survive. So there's already big companies doing that. I mean, they're all greenwashing. All the big companies now are greenwashing, trying to save the environment.
Like, how many people would buy a Tesla? How many people would buy solar panels if there was zero government incentive?
I would put a tax on cars, even electric cars, because electric cars aren't sustainable either.
Did you hear my question?
Sorry, yeah.
How many people do you think, what percentage of people would buy Tesla cars, buy solar panels if there was zero government incentive? Like, do you think we have 100% bought now because of the incentive? How much would that go down if we had zero incentive?
I wouldn't know. It's probably, I mean, I have
my guess is it's over 50%. My guess is that if people didn't get that $12,000 credit or whatever it was for buying an electric car, or the $8,000 credit, whatever it was for solar panels, I bet you over half of the people would not have made that decision to buy solar panels or electric cars, which tells me that these renewable or more better things for the planet, that it doesn't hold its own. It's not an ideal that people will take and say, I literally will save money if I do this. But no, you got to have a government incentive in order to save that money.
Okay, no, we'll probably have to reduce our energy demand as well. So we'll probably have to reduce, like the Americans will have to use as much energy as like the Italians, let's say, which is like 50% less. So your lifestyle will be like in the 1960s or something. 50s.
Yeah. Well, so, you know what? I'm tired of talking about the climate change issue, to be honest. Like, if you want to be a doomsday guy, go ahead. But you're...
No, but yeah, the big financial people are probably panicking about this too, to be fair. I'm not the only one.
The big financial people.
Like Ray Dalio, he's a bit of a doomer. He thinks the economy is going to collapse as well.
A lot of people in the financial world, like who have hedge funds or creating funds, they realize that for the bleeding hearts like you, that they can make money off you by manipulating you and your fears. This is what's going on, Sean.
Well, fear runs the world. I mean, come on.
Right.
The conservatives run fear too.
Yes, I'm not denying that conservatives use fear. But
so,
my goal with this channel and my other channel is to teach people how to be more dead inside so they cannot be manipulated by fear.
But you fear an economic collapse, don't you?
No.
You want one?
No.
Deep down, you're a doomer.
No,
so you want the economy to collapse? You're predicting it. You think it's impossible to stop the economic collapse.
Well, history shows that eventually one's going to happen, yeah.
Yeah, so do you think the next one is going to be worse than the 2008 one?
I don't know. I would say there's a good chance. Because, but I also think that the can be kicked down the road one more time, maybe 2 more times, like it has been.
Which is how much? How many years can we kick down the road?
Well, look at our last, well, I don't know if we count COVID, but we had 2008, 2001, and then, was it 89, 83? And then we had the inflation of the 70s.
COVID was a default, was actually a bailout for the financial industry. The government bailed out.
How we handled COVID was a huge mistake.
It was a bailout for the financial industry, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a huge mistake.
More than 2008.
I would say most of the companies I work with, COVID was a wonderful and beautiful thing for them because of what the government gave them.
So maybe COVID was made by the governments of the world to bail out the companies because they knew they were all in debt. So they all did this COVID thing just to bail out the companies because they knew that they're going to collapse anyway. So they made this COVID. That's a conspiracy theory now that the right-wingers would have. What do you think about that?
Anything's possible in the magical kingdom. But I got another guy wants to call in.
All right, I'll let you go. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
And I do want to talk about, what's his name? Seth. What's his name? The Thinking Atheist. What's that guy's name? I always want to say Seth Rogen, but that's the actor. Hey, Doug's liberal friend, you're on. I guess I should be putting this up.
Hey, Doug, can you hear me?
Yep. Can hear you now.
Awesome. Yeah, I got a bad secret for you today.
What?
I am kind of conservative economically. We've never talked about that.
I think you did mention it once. Go
ahead. Most
men who lean left are that way.
I've actually been made fun of, like, oh, you're all about those social issues, but the economy. I really think if we're going to give people money for welfare or food stamps, we need to highly regulate what we give them money for. Like, you should be able to buy bread, milk, water, rice. You can't be out there buying soda, candy. I'm sorry. People have told me that that's a horrible thing to say. What are your thoughts on this, or where do you want to grill me on it?
Yeah, no, I agree. But it's almost nothing. It's not going to make a dent compared to the bigger issues, problems we have, like Social Security funding.
Mm. So what's your, do you think we need personal accounts?
Well, what's my personal feeling or to solve that problem?
Well, I remember during Bush, I'm a little bit older. I remember during Bush, he was talking about we need to all have our personal accounts.
Yeah, personal accounts addresses more the future, what we're going to do in the future with like a new system. But I'm saying with our current system, in order to save it, and I think you have to save it.
Okay.
I think the solution on the expenditure side is for the ultra wealthy to say, suck it. I know you put in all this money, but you're never going to get it back. Too bad. Go cry in your room. Yeah, the liberals will like that, right?
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great. Let's work together on that.
And then on the revenue side, you're probably going to have some type of general sales tax to pay for it because of our demographic shift. There's just not enough young people to help pay into it, and that's going to suck too. But I don't see any other way.
Here's my problem with sales tax, because sales tax is a consumption tax. So the people who get hit with it the most are the people who have to spend their money. Like if you make, yeah, exactly. So I really like your idea of the ultra wealthy not getting their money back. Could we go?
But I'm not sure. But I got to look in the data on that because I'm not sure how big of a dent that will make.
And it's a good point, because it's like, because Social Security you only get taxed up to a certain amount, right? Like after a certain point.
Yeah, you're right.
I hit those numbers. So
yeah.
Like,
so, what I'm saying is, like, if your net worth is over a certain amount, because you're retired, so you really don't have income, probably, then it doesn't matter. Like when you were in your 30s and 40s, you probably paid in a lot because you were under like 200,000 a year, whatever. Sorry, that you just won't get it. And so basically, I'm punishing the ultra wealthy.
Well, it really hurts me when I go into, like Target or something, and just going in there alone with all the LGBT stuff. I'm kidding. But when I go in there and I see, like a 75, 80-year-old person, like my parents' age, and they're doing like a very small task, and my parents are just having a great time in their elderly years, hanging out with their friends, basically. My sister went there and said it looked like college to her, because they're all like going over to each other's houses, having dinner parties. But that's what you should be enjoying your elderly years, but a lot of elderly people can't do that. And I really like your idea. We could look at what dent it would cause, but maybe then we talk about how we need to take more money. And
the first step though is we got to get Republicans and Democrats to work together to even talk about it. Like some of them do talk about it, but there's no real effort to. The longer you wait, the harder it's going to be to solve. There's no real effort to solve this problem. And this is the biggest line item on our balance sheet.
Mm-hmm. And I remember during Bush, they were talking about it collapsing, and my parents were worried they weren't going to get it. They get it now because they're in their 70s. But I highly doubt I'll be able to go Social Security. So I don't plan on it. I've got my own investments and stuff.
Yeah.
What else? You were talking about climate change. I don't know if you want to get into that, because I've got some strong opinions on that.
No, I'm tired of climate change.
What do you want to talk about, or do you want to?
Were you here when I did the how to solve the deficit problem in general, and I talked about taxing the rich? Were you here for that?
Really familiar. Go back over it.
So basically, what I said is to help people like you on the left you're a conservative, you said, on fiscal stuff, but to help some people on the left understand that the problem is on the expense side, not the revenue side. And what I did is I showed that the top 1% of taxpayers pay up close to 50% of all the tax revenue, income tax revenue. And if we were to double their top tier tax rate, actually triple, from 26%, what it is now, to 70%, we would still have a deficit.
Oh, I see the Excel spreadsheet on this.
Yeah, that just shows you how bad it is right now.
Yeah.
And it was bad in Trump's last year, but then Trump can rightly say, well, that's because of all the COVID stimulus. It was bad during Obama's first 2 years, but that's because of the housing crash. So you can always make exceptions in here, but right now we have no exceptions. We have no reason to say, oh, but this is why it's bad. Well, inflation, you can say, um, but the interest rates have slowly been creeping up over the last couple of years.
And am I correct that it was under Clinton's final years, right before Bush came in, that we were actually running a surplus?
Yes, the only
Yeah.
time I think in this century, last 100 years, that we've had a surplus was during the Clinton years.
Yeah. And so Bush came in and, he did the tax cuts. Jerry Springer, rest his soul, once said, he got his tax refund back and he was like, you know what I did with it? I put it in the bank. That's some stimulating the economy. Because if you want to stimulate the economy, I think we kind of did it right. I don't really like all the COVID stimulus package stuff.
But people think, like, I think people make a mistake with Clinton and say that, like, don't get me wrong, I think Clinton was a very good Republican president. But they make the mistake to think, it's because of the higher taxation under Clinton, and then when Bush came in, he lowered taxes, and then that's what made everything. No, the reason why there was a surplus in the 90s, the late 90s, is because of technology. That's when the internet hit, and we had a boom. This is when we had Yahoo and even Microsoft expanding, and this was probably the most period of time where you had the most glory years of GDP growth and new ideas and innovation.
I'd love to ask a Gen Z person, have you asked Jeeves that question? And they'll be like, ask Jeeves, and I'll be like, yeah, you weren't around for that. But you're right, there was a big boom. And also Congress, I think Clinton had Republicans in control. Was it Newt Gingrich back then? I'm not trying to
Yeah.
it up. Yeah, so Congress holds the purse strings a lot of times, so maybe a little bit of division can be good. Like, we don't want them to work together sometimes and just blow through all our money like kids without.
And wasn't Clinton, he worked with Republicans with welfare reform. I think that was more the early 90s or mid 90s, right?
Yeah, he did.
Like, he tackled the expense side as well.
I think Clinton, I like looking back, other than Clinton being an absolute scumbag and Jeffrey Epstein and all that crap. Clinton did an all right job. Bush did an all right job.
You notice how quiet Clinton's been? Bill Clinton has in the last 5 years.
He doesn't want to talk anymore.
He's dropped off the face of the planet. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a cabin somewhere and he just is scared to go out anywhere.
I've heard I don't know. You hear weird stuff. I used to be involved in politics. It's a mess. When I got involved in politics, I learned how much I hate both sides. Like, I have voted Republican multiple times, and I wish people. You said something about tribalism yesterday. I think it was. You were talking to, it might have been Victor, but there was a lot about tribalism and how people just want to defend their own side. No, it was the last gentleman. That was a really interesting conversation you had. Last conversation. That was, yeah. And I hope, but I'm trying to get some contention going between us. I'm trying to get you mad at me today.
I don't think it's possible. I think we just agree on too much.
You might. I have been thinking about, we'll mention it real briefly, the LGBT stuff. I have been thinking about people who are transgender in sports.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Democrats are losing on it.
They are definitely losing on it. And not only that, it's the transgender sports issue that's causing Democrats to lose on other issues as well.
Yeah. Because it's just like it's like opening a wound basically on us. It's like they can just, if we don't sound reasonable on it, but here's the thing: how much you mentioned how things impact our lives. How much does that really impact your or my life?
The sports issue?
Yeah, the transgender and sports issue.
Oh, none. My daughter doesn't play sports.
Exactly, and so it just becomes this issue that they can bring up to make Democrats look bad. So my advice to Democrats would be pretty much just like dodge it from now on, or just talk about how they don't want to talk about the economy.
Well, but for me though, the real issue, and I've said this so many times now, that I should stop talking about transgender issues because I'll just say it bluntly, my side has already won it. Like, it's not even close. We've won it. And same with transitioning of trans kids in the teenage years. My side has won it. It's done. Bathrooms is a little more wishy-washy, but what's another one? Even things like affirmative action, we've won it. But I still think a conversation can be had on the trans issue because it can lead to a great conversation on the freer speech issue. that a guy like me should have the right to look what I'll just call woke people in the eye and say, no, I don't think trans women should compete against biological women, real women. And if that makes you cry, so be it. And then if they want to actually come back to me and say, well, you're increasing the risk of suicide, I'll say, show me the data. Show me any trans woman athlete who's committed suicide because they couldn't compete. And they can't do it.
I don't think there is. And
no, there isn't. And so if it's now down to a feelings issue or a sadness issue, are you telling me that there's not more biological women sad than trans people sad? So why are you siding with the minority here? There's that type of feel sorry forism that I rather feel sorry for a trans woman than a real woman. Why? Because they'll commit suicide. That's basically the only argument they have.
But this really came up in your debate yesterday. Isn't that kind of the argument for women who are not trans, that they'll feel sorry they won't win, they'll feel bad for what they put into the sport, that they're not getting out some sort of achievement? So I think I just think this, if you don't mind, I'm going to go to the bathroom issue because I think I have a solution for that for you. I know I'm jumping really quickly, but I think I can give you a solution to
me, it's more that someone made a great comment to me yesterday that I should not really talk about bathrooms, but changing rooms. That's probably a better issue to talk about. Should trans women be allowed in women's changing rooms? Because you can always talk about stalls and nobody's going to see anything anyhow. But when you're in a changing room, actually, I've never been in a woman's changing room. I don't know. Is there stalls there too? Is there a woman here that can confirm or deny? Maybe there is. I don't know.
Your gentleman yesterday talked about, he just like openly went into the women's bathroom. I thought that was so funny. He's like, just went straight in there. But I've got my story on that too. I accidentally went into a women's bathroom one time and I was like, what did they do to the urinals? Where are the urinals at? And so I went into a stall and then like I heard women come in and I was like, oh, like then my brain suddenly realized, what have I done? And quickly finished, washed my hands and left that area. But when it comes to these things like changing rooms, bathrooms, here's the easy solution. Just leave it up to the business. How's that sound? Then you can choose to go to that business.
Yeah. I'm not opposed to that. Like if the business, like that's happening to Target and Target's losing, like they're losing a lot of market share and market value because, like I'll be honest with you. I told my wife, please stop shopping at Target. This is ridiculous to me.
Oh, because the LGBT?
Yep.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Like to me, it's just when you're pandering by putting up, like this happened in our city. I'm not just making this up. What you see on the news is actually real and happening of the, what do you call the tuck in underwear for young teenagers or whatever.
I think it was an adult tuck-in, I think, or something.
Well, it looks small to me, but it's just, no.
So where if you don't buy your LGBT stuff at Target, where do you buy it?
Well, I usually go to the secondhand store that my church has, and then I don't go to church.
The secret comes out. You're actually just you've been LARPing as an atheist this whole time. But really quickly, I do not think it would be unfair if a business had restrooms or changing rooms that applied to everybody. And they said, only these people can go into this area. Like, as long as you can go to that business and go into a changing room, I don't think you're being discriminated against.
Would you be against a law that says businesses can't do that?
Yes. Businesses can't discriminate.
Because there's certain rights our country has for women, specifically women. What if the evil conservatives said, companies are not allowed, they have to have women and men's bathrooms, just like they have to have wheelchair ramps, and that if you have a women's bathroom, trans women who are men can't go in. Would you be against that law?
I'd be against the U.S. making that law. I would not be against a business making that law.
Why would you be against the U.S. making that law?
Because I think a private business can choose to, as long as they're not discriminating, choose how their clientele acts in their business.
So would you be against a private business saying, no, I'm not putting up a wheelchair ramp?
No, that's discriminating. because then people don't have access. If you have access to the changing room, like if a woman, transgender woman has access to the changing room, that's not discrimination. But if a person who doesn't have wheelchair access doesn't have access, that's discrimination.
No,
Go
but
ahead.
why is that discrimination bad?
Because they don't have access. It's
Yeah, they
lack of
do.
access. A wheelchair? Are we talking
No,
wheelchair?
no, well, no, sorry, I'm talking about the trans woman.
Okay, so
The trans woman can go in the men's bathroom.
correct, and the business can decide that.
No, but why would it be wrong to make a law that says that biological women go in women's bathrooms, biological men go in men's bathrooms?
I
Now,
think
there's always exceptions. Like I'm thinking of a ton of exceptions where there's a lot of trans women that really do look like women, and they might even be raped if they went to a men's bathroom.
well, yeah.
but-
you
but
see-
I-
you know
I'm-
who
I'm
Blair
just-
White, right?
What's that?
You know who Blair White is?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
Okay.
Actually, but I've seen her.
We all think of Blair White.
I'll be honest with you. If I saw Blair White in real life, I would
Yeah.
know she's not a real woman.
Oh yeah, because we know Blair White.
No, even if I didn't know her backstory. I am a very good pattern-seeking male. I can almost smell it.
How many I know probably at least I've met at least a dozen people who are transgender in my life.
Yeah.
Like in person. How many people it's not some this sounds like a game.
And you should bring them. Yeah, we should have a game show. You bring them
Yeah.
on, and biological man or not,
That's what we do.
let's play the
Oh.
game show. What has he won, Johnny?
No. But what I've found is that there's a lot of variation. And some people really want to, as it's sometimes said, and this can be a bad word, I think sometimes pass. They want to come, they don't want anyone to ever know. Some people are less interested in that and don't really care to like shave down their Adam's apple or do things like that, or, you know, deepen their voice enough or whatever. So I think you're right. You mentioned something a second ago about how there could be harm that comes to a person who goes into the changing room that actually the law says they're supposed to go into.
Okay, let's say that there's a YMCA with a change room. Would you say it'd be wrong for me to go into a woman's change room?
Right now, yes.
Okay, then hang on.
Okay.
I'm a woman. Now is it wrong?
Okay, so this is gonna get really crazy really fast. So I'll answer the question. If you are truly identifying as a woman and you truly mean it,
I truly am. Hang on, let me make sure.
are you asking Myron?
Yes, I'm truly a woman. Is it
Okay.
now wrong for me to go to the YMCA into a woman's change room?
This is
Just
where it
as I am.
So my answer is now no.
See, this is why
Okay.
the left is losing big time. Because
Yeah, I
what
know.
you just said is crazy to me.
Well, but the
Just
okay,
me
so-
saying
wait,
a
let me
few
ask you
words,
question. Let me ask
poof.
let me ask you a question. Okay, so you're saying it's still wrong for you to go in there right now, right?
No, you said that.
I know. I said it was not.
No. I asked you, is it wrong
Yes.
for me to right now as a
I said
man?
it's not wrong now that you have said I am a woman and you truly mean
Right.
it.
So you
Okay.
flipped just
But
from
let
me
me-
making a declaration of a few words.
Let me ask you a follow up on this. Okay, so now you've been a woman for 15 seconds, right?
Yeah. 20 now. It feels
20
good.
Man,
I
feel like a woman.
feel so feminine. Where's
I've
my
seen you look-
lipstick?
I've seen you look more like a woman, Pinecreek. I know about some bets, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, point being, let's say actually let's go back to that point in time where you made that bet, and which I think is fine. I've been in drag. It's all good.
You have?
Yeah, I mean, who hasn't? Who's not? Put on a dress.
Well, I can't say anything because I have too. So.
Okay, so at that point, let's say that day you did that and you realized, this really fits with me, right? Like you had this revelation, and you then explored and went down that avenue, and you started growing out your hair really long. You started
Yeah.
coloring your nails.
As
you
if that
shaved
will
down your-
happen.
You did gender reassignment surgeries. You did all these
Ooh.
things. Oh, so you do all these things, okay? And this was what, 4 or 5 years ago? So you've now had like 5, because it was over an election, I think, right? Wasn't it Hillary?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is, my gosh, 7 years ago. So you've had 7 years of living as how you perceive yourself as a woman,
Yeah.
and you've got beautiful, luscious locks, and you've done up your hair really great. You're going to a changing room. Do you think you should go into the men or women? And you're not going to be looking at people. You're not going to be going. You're not doing anything creepy. Do you think at this point you should go into the men
To
or
be
women?
honest, if it were literally that situation you just described, I wouldn't go into either. I would avoid bathrooms like the plague.
You know
Public
what? That's what
bathrooms.
transgender people have told me. They are afraid to use public. That's
Yeah.
like literally said. I'm afraid.
But
to use
that,
public
but in
resources."
my opinion, that's the wise decision to avoid them like the plague.
But
That's
let's say they have to. Let's say they just like they're like I never use, and then they had some Taco Bell, and they're like, oh my gosh, I got to go. There's only a changing room which has a bathroom. I have to go in.
okay. If I had to go because of Taco Bell, I would be polite to the women and go into the men's bathroom because I would make a
Okay.
big stink,
Well,
literally. And I didn't want. I'd rather have men smell it than women.
so you're gonna go in there with a dress, full makeup on, looking like a woman.
Yeah,
Running it.
and in fact, I saw a video of Blair White doing that, going into a men's
She
bathroom.
did at a bar, right?
And the men were okay with it.
No, they kicked her out of the bar.
What? Not the video I saw.
Find that video.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
But sorry, when she walked in, there was I think
Yeah,
just
there
one
was.
man in there, and the one man was totally fine with it.
The
Man looked at her and said, "Are you in the right place?"
I've seen. Oh gosh, you're about to hear some crazy stories. I've seen women in the bathroom twice, and this one time I looked over and she was like, I think doing some drugs. It was I don't know. Don't go to bars. See crazy stuff. But I think Blair White's the perfect example there because she got kicked out of the restaurant for going into the place she's quote unquote supposed to go into. So what if she had to go in there?
Yeah, this is why the whole thing is a mess. Like,
It is.
so
So
maybe the best way, and this is really going to upset people on the left, but maybe the best solution to this is to be very honest with the trans people and say, look, society does not accept this behavior, so don't do it in society. Do it at home in private.
I don't like that at all.
Yeah, see, but okay, why don't you like that?
Because it's like two men kissing in public or something. Like, you know, you go to Utah and you kiss in public in front of their temple and they're going to freak out. It's none of their business. You're in public.
Yeah, but I'm married. I don't kiss my wife in public, or very, very rarely.
Oh, Doug, come on.
No, seriously, like you.
I know what you're saying. That my wife's not a big fan.
See,
of
the reason why a lot of people on the left would just push back with that brutal honesty that I just gave, like just don't do it then, is that, but then they can't be who they really are, and that they're going to get depressed and sad and then high risk of suicide. That's where it always leads to.
But I think there's an element of truth to what you said, that the safest thing, and this is sad, and I don't like that society is this way, the safest thing for a lot of transgender people is to simply not be transgender. And that's, I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's dangerous. Like there's a lot of harm and discrimination towards transgender people.
Yeah, I even doubt that.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Now,
my
okay,
gosh.
I'm not talking about thoughts. I'm talking about actual. Like, do you know how many transgender people have been killed in the last year?
I think I've seen 2 news articles this year. I think there was someone who was literally sent back to their country by their family.
How many people? Is it more than 100 or less than 100?
It might be less than 100.
Yeah.
I can't give you a number.
Far, far more people are killed from just crossing the street, not looking both ways in this country.
But
This is not a real. This sounds so cold, but in the big scope of society, this is not a big deal. It is tragic for those few people who have been killed, and oftentimes when they are killed, it's not just because they're transgender. There's something else going on with like the sex industry or drugs. And another question, how many transgender people have committed suicide last year?
I could try to get to the numbers again. I know we've talked about this.
The numbers don't exist. But you can make inferences, and from what I've read and seen, again, it might be under 50 in a country of a population of 350 million. So what are we talking about here? And again, it's like martyrdom in Christianity. How do you know they died for their belief in the resurrection? How do you know they died because they were persecuted for being a transgender and not related to drugs or the sex industry or something else or just other mental illnesses? Like, this is nuts to me.
There are literally, we know this, there are people who will not date people if they are transgender, right?
Yes, that's
there
true.
There are companies, we could say many Christian companies, that will not hire people if they are transgender.
Yeah, and isn't that understandable?
I think not.
No, but let's be really honest with each other. Let's say you have a family diner, okay?
Mhm.
Even in a big city, I'm not talking about small rural, and you got a guy, sorry, no, I'm not sorry. You got a man who's dressed like a woman with a beard, and he wants to be the hostess. You really blame the operator of that diner for saying no?
Yeah.
I don't.
I
Because every customer that, not every customer, but most customers are going to come in there and say, okay. Like they're not going to maybe make the facial expression, but in their mind, they know that this is a guy wearing a dress. It's basically a transvestite. You can't really tell the difference between a transvestite and a trans person if they don't talk, right? Like how many transvestites are going to get jobs as hostesses? Like
Let me
even the transvestites know this. They realize that they're not going to get these jobs.
let me ask you this about businesses. My first job, long time ago, I had my hair to my shoulders, and I'm a guy, as you can tell. My first job actually let me go because I wouldn't cut my hair. What's your thoughts on that?
Was it well done?
Yeah, it looked fine. I'd get haircuts, I'd get trims. I had some layers.
Like if you had product on it, you combed
Oh
it,
yeah.
it wasn't lice. Yeah, then it's fine.
Yeah, no, the company 100% let me go because they had a policy against men having hair that long. Like men could not have hair, I think it was touching their shoulders, and my hair was already like on my shoulders, and I'd already like cut it up one time, and then they're like, it's on your shoulders again. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to cut
Yeah,
my hair.
you can bring up a lot of counterexamples,
Sure.
like even face tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of businesses that if you, or even arm tattoos. If you have tattoos on your arm, you have to cover it up. I think Disney has that rule, right? I think they do,
might.
which is
See,
so strange. They want people with tattoos to cover up. They don't want people with showing a lot of cleavage. They have all these rules of how people have to appear at Disney. I think what I said is true, but yet you can have a beard and a dress. Like, where do you draw the line? Like, this whole social thing is like crazy if you think about it.
I think it is. It's tough. And I think we're hitting some good topics here. And I'll tell you my views 100% on them because I think if you have a uniform that you say your people have to wear, I think you can't discriminate based on gender. Like if there's a dress or a suit for my work, I should be able to wear a dress or a suit.
But that's not really is that discriminating based on gender?
Yeah, because it like if they say, "Oh, only these people can wear this outfit and only these people can wear that outfit," that's discrimination.
Okay, well, I got to make this clear.
Yeah.
Discrimination is not bad inherently, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So oftentimes a big mistake people make is they throw out that word discrimination like it's always bad. It's not. We discriminate every day of our lives and for good reason, and it's okay. Now if an employer has a dress code and attaches men have to wear this, women have to wear that, do you think that would go to court as discrimination?
I think it could in today's age, definitely not in the 90s or 80s.
Yeah, but why in today's age? It's only because of the trans issue, or it's more
Or in
specifically a
part.
transvestite issue.
Well, I think you're saying cross-dresser. I don't know how transvestite is used these
Isn't
days.
transvestites people who dress up?
I just think of Rocky Horror Picture Show when I hear that.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's all
Cross-dressing.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cross-dressing to me. Yeah.
I don't know if it'd be interesting to see that go to the Supreme Court that that employers can discriminate against cross-dressers because that's technically not discriminating against gender or sex.
Well, you know what just happened with the recent Supreme Court case with the website, right?
No.
Okay, so there was a Supreme Court case where two men who were going to get wed wanted a kind of Christian website maker to make them a website.
Oh, yeah. I have heard that. Okay.
And to kind of spoil the court case, it had no standing. Turns out the guy who quote unquote filed it is actually a married man and a web designer married to a woman. Like the facts of the case were not real, so it actually doesn't have standing. Yet now we have precedent on it. So my problem is today's Supreme Court with Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barry. Barrett, we're gonna see ripples of this for the next 20, 30 years of conservative. They won. Trump got them what they wanted. We're gonna get. I think LGBT issues are gonna get more hits for the next 5, 10 years. Like if this went to the Supreme Court now, men are gonna wear those suits, women are gonna wear those dresses, and if you identify as a woman, doesn't matter. You're still wearing that suit. That's
Yeah.
what's gonna come out of the Supreme
Yeah,
Court.
I think you're right. That
But-
Supreme Court would rule that way.
I'll tell you why it's bad discrimination.
Okay.
It's bad discrimination because there's no reason that I should have to wear a suit. What? Because it makes people feel bad to see me in a dress?
Isn't that a good reason?
Well, it's the business's choice.
I know, but let's say that's the reason the business gives.
That makes their customers feel bad.
Yeah, like if customers feel bad, they're less likely to come into your business.
Might actually-
Every time they enter the business, they feel bad.
I'm checking my consistency meter.
Yeah,
No,
this is a bit of a
I've
trap
seen it.
question because if
I
you
know.
say that we should not take into consideration the feelings of customers, then I can say, why should we take into consideration the feelings of the transgender people?
Okay, I've got my view on it right now.
Okay. And that leads us straight to suicide rates, and that's the only answer you can give.
No. My view on it, and this is where I stand currently, I'd need to maybe argue against someone more liberal than me, is they can discriminate what their employers wear, but they can't discriminate what their customers wear.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
I know. But that goes to the bathroom issue again, to be consistent with the
So
bathroom.
if I'm a business owner and I do not want a 6-foot man who's dressed like a woman to be a hostess, I should be able to say that. And if they ask me why, because it makes my customers uncomfortable. And if they say, who cares what your customers think? I'd say, well, who cares what you think? Who cares what the transgender person thinks? But if you're going to make the feelings argument and say it doesn't count for one side, then I can say the feelings of the transgender don't count either. So I should be able to discriminate against a transgender person just like you're discriminating against my customers. Oh, I should be a lawyer.
So I think, well, I side with businesses a lot here, and I'm not saying businesses get to do whatever they want, but if a business showed, like, they had the person, like, one day a manager put them up front, they were a hostess, and then no one would walk through the door, everyone was running away, then they could say, we've decided not to put this person in this role because our business can't operate like this. And it's a business choice.
I just got to say this as an aside. I've said I really don't want to talk about transgender issues anymore.
Sorry, let's change
And the caller who's here right now, he brought it up, right?
Yeah.
He brought it up, not me. Okay, so it's now continue.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this, and then we'll head off on this if you want. Who do you like for the next election cycle? Like, I might actually vote Nikki Haley if she gets the Republican ticket, but that's not.
Well, I'm a bit of a contrarian.
Mhm.
I'm not a Trump supporter. I definitely don't like Biden either. If I had a choice between those two and those two only, I would pick Trump because of the freer speech issue. Even though Trump's not a free speech guy, the party is more so in my mind. But you know what's interesting? There's so much hate against Robert F. Kennedy Jr. that it makes me want to vote for him.
He's the new Trump.
I would be a right-leaning guy who would vote for a Democrat. I think that would be amazing. And I would love to get someone on here to talk about, maybe someone's already here who knows, because I don't really know that much about him, but I bet you, I'd be willing to place real money that a person who hates Robert F. Kennedy, who thinks he's a conspiracy nut, I bet you I could get them on here and just spew stuff that he's never, ever said. And then say, did he say that? No. Did he say that? No. And it's just all these perceptions in their head.
One thing is, I just don't like the Kennedys, especially Ted Kennedy, very corrupt family that's hidden a lot of things that they've done. Like, I believe he killed someone, didn't he? From driving, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a long time ago.
I know, we're talking old stuff now,
But as Norm Macdonald said, like, Clinton killed people.
Well, Laura Bush went through a stop sign, I think. And anyways, I shouldn't talk bad about her. She's a darling. She's a good lady.
Yeah, Laura Bush is fine.
Yeah, I think I don't like these political families that have, the Bushes, the Kennedys. Um, I'm I really do think we need an outsider, and I'm a big Bernie Sanders fan. Socialism.
I thought you said you're fiscally conservative. That's not Bernie
Yeah, I'll
Sanders.
take the hit on that. I'll pay all my money to the taxes. I'll throw it all away. I make 40K a year. I'll throw it away.
So you're willing, but there's something doesn't compute if you're fiscally responsible and you want Bernie Sanders.
I think it's like he's someone I trust.
Would the
That's
deficit
why.
Go
Go ahead.
would the deficit go up or down with Bernie Sanders?
I think it could go down because I think he'd tax the hell out of the rich.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
But he was also spent like a drunken sailor.
Yeah, probably. I mean, healthcare is absolutely nuts right now. I've dealt with the healthcare system, and it's just a mess to have to actually get an appointment.
Are you in that industry as a job?
No, I tangential to it. So I don't want to say too much. Maybe I'll email you and tell you a little bit more.
Okay.
But, well, Doug, thank you so much for your time, and always a good talk.
Okay. Take care.
See you.
Is there anybody in the live stream chat who knows anything about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. who wants to come in? Because the only thing I know about him is a couple of videos I've watched where he talks. I'm not, not people talking about him, but he actually talking. And I remember him being asked, "Are you against vaccines?" and him saying, "No, I just want to make sure they're safe." Like who would ever disagree with that? I've heard him been asked questions like, "Do you believe that vaccines cause autism?" And he said, "We don't know. We don't know what causes autism." I heard with my own ears these words coming out of his mouth. Now, there might be other places where he said other things, but on those two things, he sounded very reasonable to me. So someone come on and tell me why he's a nut job. Joystick Jedi, you want to come in? You're saying he's an idiot. Like, tell me why. Educate me. RFK Jr. is pro-gun. Yeah, I would say I lean pro-gun. Not every type of gun. Like, I don't think citizens of the United States should be allowed to own guns that are on tanks. But that's just me. Arnold Schwarzenegger owns a tank, right? But I think he took the guns doesn't work. Like, maybe I should watch a video of someone saying RFK is crazy. Maybe I can change my mind in real time. Because I honestly don't care either way. But I do like the fact that both the left and right don't like him. That's very attractive to me. We know for damn sure it's not vaccines. How do you know for damn sure? Show me the scientific study. Like, as soon as you say you don't know what causes something, you got to show me how you eliminated vaccines from that list. Like, you have to eliminate it, right? You can at least say, we know it's not that, but how do you know it's not that? You have a paper for me to read? And then it gets complicated. Anything with health gets complicated. Like, it could, saying that we know for damn sure it's not that, would you say we know for damn sure it's not a contributing factor to something that might lead to that? Someone said something about the Second Amendment, that RFK is for it or against it, or a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Yeah, people argue about that Second Amendment all the time. What does regulated militia mean? Does it always apply to regulated militia? Does the right of people to keep and bear arms apply only to the regulated militia? Or is it two separate thoughts? What were the writers thinking when they wrote that? What was their true intent? Okay, let's see if I can find a video. Still want to play Seth. I always forget his last name. Someone just told me. Seth Andrews. I want to play his video on Sound of Freedom and give you my thoughts, because I think this is where atheists screw up. But I don't care if atheists screw up. Doesn't matter to me, but I think he does screw up here. But I'm going to first find someone bashing RFK Jr. RFK Jr. is a nut job. Let's see what comes up on YouTube. Oh, yeah. First hit is Mr. Pac-Man.
Are single-handedly disqualifying of him as an even remotely serious presidential candidate. And I'm going to give you examples today. So I'm not going to be wishy-washy and act like, well, there's pros and cons and maybe they cancel out, so maybe you vote for the guy. No, what I'm telling you is, although there are some things about him that I like, there are concerns so bad that they are uniquely disqualifying. The negatives about Bobby Kennedy Jr. are single-handedly disqualifying of him.
What are they?
As an even remotely serious presidential candidate. And I'm going to give you examples today. So I'm not going to be wishy-washy and act like...
Oh, this is a short where he does... Okay, let me check the description box. It's titled Anti-Vaccine Positions Completely Disqualifying. Okay, is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. against vaccines? True, or that's a question. So, is he or is he not? Is he against some vaccines? All vaccines? Like, I honestly don't know the answer. From what I heard from his own lips, he's more agnostic about it. But I think for people like Pac-Man, and again, I'm guessing, he would say, vaccines are so important to the health of society that it is dangerous to even question it. This is what I don't like. This is what I don't like about the left. Because it's more so coming from the left. I want the left to hear this loud and clear. I don't like it when the left says, we can't even allow the questioning of it because it's so important. No, I'm a freer speech guy. Question it. You can question almost anything. Feel free to question. You can even question your own existence. This is what philosophers do. Stupid, in my opinion. There's one thing you shouldn't question. It might be that you're thinking, you're conscious as you're talking. But that might be the only exception. And this, I don't know why it bothers me so much, but it bothers me that what I see coming on the left is you can't even, social media sites shouldn't even publish certain things because it causes people to have the wrong thoughts. Thought policing. Oh, you can't even publish this misinformation because it will lead people astray. Well, number one, are you sure? How sure are you this is indeed misinformation? Or number two, how sure are you that maybe some of it's true, some of it's not? And you're saying, well, because some of it may not be true, we cannot risk, Doug, most people are total idiots. You know that, Doug. As a representative for the left, I must tell you, most of the world are complete, utter idiots. And we just can't allow them to hear people like Robert F. Kennedy say stuff that will cause them to not get vaccinated. I mean, we have to shut the man's mouth. This is what I detest. No, if Robert F. Kennedy is wrong in something he says, in the arena of ideas, there's going to be a person who can say, you're wrong, and here's why, and let them battle it out in the arena of ideas. But Doug, you got to think of the children. Got to think of the children. Okay. Alex, do you know anything about Robert F. Kennedy?
I unfortunately do not, but you started
Oh.
talking about freer speech, but I can leave if you.
No, that's all right. Actually, let me turn you up.
Oh.
And let me refocus you.
Okay.
What did you want to talk about freer speech?
I was kind of curious. So you believe that the Republican Party is more pro free speech than the Democratic Party? Like it's
Yeah, I
freer
didn't
speech?
say Trump. I understand Trump likes to hush people up, but I'm just saying in general the Republican Party.
Yeah, I guess I'm like I don't think I have that same belief or inclination.
You know why? Let me explain why I say that.
I just heard your rant like all.
Yeah.
So okay, but sure, you can give me more details.
I want you to envision a room of people, and in this room of people are mostly people who follow certain parts of critical theory. Okay?
Yep.
You got them in your head? Some of them are
Sure.
critical race theorists, some of them are critical other theorists. And they believe that certain people's lived experiences should be heard and other people's lived experiences should not. Because they, like, how dare a man give his opinion on women's issue? How dare a white man tell or give his opinion on black culture? Whatever, okay? So imagine that room, okay? Now here's the question for you. Do you think that room is more likely to vote Democrat or Republican?
Democrat.
There you go. That's why I say
But-
what I said.
Okay. Sure. So, I mean, I don't know like a ton of people who like are devout CRT followers, as you say, but I'm curious, like, so if you saw a poll or something, specifically people who said they subscribe to some form of CRT, and let's say 95% of them said, no, we should hear all perspectives, including middle-aged white men. Would that change your mind? Like, I'm curious what.
If
do we need to
95% of
see?
followers of CRT said that?
Yes.
Yeah,
This is like a subset.
yes, that would change my mind.
Okay. So
You
you
provide
just
me
have,
that
like,
evidence, I'll change my mind.
Yeah, so I feel like you might having like encountered these people through social media and like the very inflammatory leftists who, you know,
Yes.
I would probably also disagree
Crazies,
with
yep.
a lot. But like I don't think the Democratic Party, right? It's the same thing as how you like neglected Trump, right? When I'm talking about the Democratic Party, or if I'm talking about most people who lean left, like if we broaden it to everyone who leans left. do you
But
think
I
that
can even leave critical race theory out of it and go to things like social media, which a ton of people are on Instagram, a ton of people, like billions of people are on Instagram, hundreds of millions on Facebook, maybe billions, Twitter, hundreds of millions.
Absolutely.
Before Elon took Twitter over, if you were to guess, we don't know the correct answer, I don't think. If you were to guess, what percentage of them voted Democrat? What percentage of voted Republican? The actual people, the executives, the managers of Twitter.
Oh, the people in the company.
Yeah, before Elon took it over.
Well, I would probably say voted Democrat versus Republican.
Yeah,
I think it'd be near 50-50.
really.
I think ideologically it probably leans Democrat, but
I
think a
would
lot of
bet
them
you
have-
real money, real big money, that it
I
would
don't
be.
have real big money.
I would bet. In fact, I bet you I could find some evidence to back it up too, but it'd be tough. I would bet real money it's closer to 80% Democrat, 20% Republican in the before Elon took it over.
I feel like a lot of them would make a lot of money though, and that would lead them to vote Republican.
Oh yeah, that's the
I guess
20%.
that's yeah. I guess I thought that it would be like 80-20 ideologically.
And
or
it's probably that
70-30 maybe.
20% that lean Republican that still have their jobs at Twitter. The 80% probably left that voted Democrat. They're already gone.
I guess I thought the like income thing would shift it more, but maybe I'm overestimating how much income.
You would say the same thing
creates
for
voting.
Facebook and what other social media sites are there? Instagram, Facebook. You would say it's 50-50?
TikTok.
TikTok?
TikTok's Chinese owned. I don't know. Did you talk
Yeah,
about
but
the American branch of it?
The American
Not sure.
branch of it's probably run by mostly U.S. citizens. That's still how the Chinese get away with it.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so let's say that Twitter or something's run by 100% Democrats. What's the problem with it? Like you believe that they're promoting democratic stuff, even if
There's
they
less.
are.
Do you agree there's less censorship on Twitter today than 2 years ago?
Ye-
Be
Yeah, lean,
honest.
yes, but
Yeah,
that's
lean yes.
complicated.
Okay, no. So if I'm right that there was more Democrats pre-Elon and more freer speech, not free, but more freer speech
Okay.
now, there you see a correlation, right?
All of this is focused on private companies, though. Like, I think it would help me if you could.
Okay, let's take the government.
About like the law, right? And I think you and I both agree that a lot of private companies can kind of do what they want. And the question is what the government should be how they should be regulating these private companies, right? Because if YouTube just takes down your video or whatever because a bunch of people didn't like it, like that's just in their best interest or something, right? And unless they're regulated away from that, or unless you change public opinion, then that.
Okay, well, let's talk about that.
Do you have an issue with that, or do you?
Yeah, I do in some cases.
Okay.
So
an issue with private companies censoring their platforms.
No. I thought you were talking about the government, their regulating of it.
Yeah. Okay. That's my follow-up question: is how should the government?
So I'll tell you what I'm against. I'm against the federal government telling Twitter, this is COVID misinformation. We recommend you put either a thing on it or you block it. Are you with me on that? That the federal government shouldn't be able to do that?
Government shouldn't have anything to do with that.
Yeah. Now, here's the question for you. Do you think that actually happened in history?
The government telling a social media company
like Facebook or Twitter to maybe not censor it or delete it, but put those, those little things. You see it on YouTube all the time. Like if I titled this video COVID and it has nothing to do with COVID, there will be a little thing caption on there. Do you think the government had any role in that?
Had any role?
Sure. In telling privately held companies or public companies.
Any role is very, very broad. So yeah, I think they probably had some role.
Okay, some role. But do you think that there has been conversations between the federal government, CIA, FBI, directly to leaders in Facebook or Twitter in the past regarding either COVID or what's another example I read? There was something else. It was mostly COVID in the last few years. Well, the trans issue actually.
I don't know about the trans issue one. I know the one with COVID. Like Twitter had disclaimers about information, or what they labeled as misinformation. I think the government probably does have direct conversations. I don't think that these like policies or these changes on social media are directly caused by those conversations.
You don't think the policy? Say what you just said last sentence.
I don't think that because of those conversations, this stuff happened. Like I think it could have happened with or without those conversations.
Washington Times, December 24th. Latest Twitter files point to CIA involvement in pressure campaign to censor speech. Washington Times. Now, do they lean right? Probably. They're evil, right? The FBI provided Twitter site monitors with CIA. Hang on, let me bring this up. Because Tim West is being a real pain in the butt in the live stream.
Could you send me a link to it too? I'm curious.
Yeah, hang on. I'll put it in the live stream chat. The FBI provided Twitter site monitors with CIA intelligence assessments as part of its far-reaching campaign to pressure social media platforms to censor speech. The latest installment of Elon Musk's Twitter files suggests the latest drop unveiled by an independent journalist, Matt Taibbi, revealed the officers from other government agencies, a common euphemism for the CIA, were part of the regular meetings between federal officials and social media platforms disclosed in the previous Twitter files installments. Quote, the file showed that the FBI acting as the doorman to a vast program of social media surveillance and censorship encompassing agencies across the federal government. Can you guys see that? Yeah. Were part of regular meetings, hang on, from the State Department to the Pentagon to the CIA.
All right, so the conversations did happen.
Well, we don't know for sure, but this is one man's. Well, actually, I think Elon posted it on Twitter, right? Some of these conversations. Twitter's deep involvement with the CIA now open in the open.
And
Yeah.
you think that this is that it's the Democratic Party that supports this and that the Republican Party does not?
Not completely. They each have their issues that they want to protect and hide. But I would say that on the whole, it is the left side that is more, I'll even cater, I'm going to pander to the left right now. It's the left who cares more. The left cares more.
Actually,
The
I saw
left
an
cares
interesting article about that.
Yeah, the left cares more about people than the right. I don't truly believe that, but the reason I'm saying that is I'm pandering to the left right now. So if you truly believe this, that the left cares about the right, or people more than the right, then it's very easy for you to accept that the left government, the government who leans left, are more likely, because they care about the people, to say RFK's views on vaccines are dangerous and they should not be in open forums. They're more likely to say, no, don't talk about ivermectin because that'll make it less likely that this poor, ignorant schmuck of a U.S. citizen is less likely they're going to get a vaccine if they think that they can just take ivermectin. This is how the left thinks, a lot of them. And I'm against this. I want the arena of ideas to be out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think.
Is that reasonable what I just said?
The arena ideas, 100%.
No,
yes.
but that the left is more likely to censor these types of ideas because they view them as dangerous to those poor, ignorant, stupid American citizens.
I think it's a bit of a caricature, but
it is.
There's some logical thread. It reminds me of this hypothetical with these CRT people in a room, and it's I just don't think that that's a high percentage of left leaners.
Well, I don't know what the percentage is, but I hear so often people on the left parroting ideas that come from critical theory.
Sure. That doesn't mean that
and so they probably don't understand it exactly. Of course they don't, unless you've studied this in university.
Too stupid? They don't understand the CRT.
Hey, no, I agree that about half the country has an IQ below 100.
Wow, so bold.
That's such a bold statement I'm making. I just realized how nicely my shirt goes with the background.
Yeah, very
Isn't that good? I mean, I'm
bringing the blue though.
I'm feeling pretty today. Anyhow, what else did you want to talk about?
I guess it was mostly just I think the Republican Party is less free speech. I think the Democratic Party is freer speech.
Let me bash the right. They're less free speech when it comes to cross-dressers, transvestites, drag queens. Now, if a drag queen is not doing anything sexual and simply just reading a nice book, then basically the people on the right are just flipping out because the drag queen makes them feel icky, right? That's the only reason.
So, okay. What kind of books would have to get banned? What's an example of a book that when it was banned, you'd be like, oh, wait, the Republican Party is less free speech than the Democratic Party.
Yeah, so it would be highly sexualized type graphic books that are truly informative, they're giving correct information, but are not appropriate for young kids.
Correct by whose standard?
Well, let's say it's let's say it's a book on STDs and how to perform anal sex without getting an STD. Should that be in an elementary school?
Probably not.
The library? No. So I am complete. And the thing is, I could get Democrats to agree with a lot of things I say by pointing to these extreme examples, which there's how many Democrats in here would raise their hand and say, "Yeah, I'm for pictures of a penis entering a butthole in an elementary school library." Like show of hands. Like no Democrat's going to say that's
Well,
appropriate.
yeah, that's not interesting. You got to ask more interesting hypotheticals.
What? That's not interesting.
No.
I don't even understand the physics of it.
What if
To me, that's fascinating.
you're like, I need that book. I need to know what's going on there. But if they were banning like, so non-sexual books, like let's say they were banning just classic books, like just randomly.
Yeah,
from
I'd be
high
against that.
schools. Okay.
Yeah, but I
And,
don't
like, would
think
you-
that's happening. Like most of the bills that people say are against transgender or whatever, or gays or whatever, they're not that. They're bills against these types of books saying, hey, kids shouldn't even be talking about any type of sexuality at this age. And a lot of people on the left disagree with that.
And I mean, most of the bills that are pro, like or for the left, aren't trying to ban your speech away from, like, they're not trying to make it illegal for you to make a video.
Actually,
about
no, bills,
CRT.
you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I agree with you.
If that's our standard, yeah, it's about like the ideology of like the party and what. So some things the right is advocating for that like I disagree with is like, so I think like Utah, they're trying to put like age restrictions on like porn websites and stuff and requiring age verification, which is like an infringement on privacy. Which
Why are you against that?
Because I'm a big privacy advocate.
No, but this is similar to the book thing, like in elementary schools. You said no to.
Yeah, but it's online, right? So it's the internet, and it's like they have to upload. Like, for example, you might have to upload your ID to go and enter Pornhub in Utah.
Okay, wait a minute. Are you for or against young children, let's say age 6, 7, watching?
Against
You're against.
porn. Yeah, I don't want 6-year-olds watching porn, obviously.
But you're also against.
I don't think the
Utah
government
state
should
government.
regulate 6-year-olds like going on the internet. I don't think that that's the responsibility of the government.
But what about the internet makes it especially bad for you? Like you wouldn't be for a man at a store selling a magazine to a 6-year-old, but so you would want that regulated, say that's against the law. You could be fined penalties if a store on the street sold a Playboy or a Hustler magazine to a 6-year-old. You're for that, yes? For a state law?
So. I'm trying to figure. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay,
what laws
now,
exist
so if you're
like
for
that.
that, a state making a law saying that it's legal to sell pornographic material to a 6-year-old, why would you not be consistent and say, just because it's on the internet, that the only thing that's changed is the interface? Instead of a man handing you a paper, it's a website handing you a digital picture or video.
No, because that's not true, right? Because the website does a lot more than just hand you a digital picture. Like you're connecting to the website through the internet, and like it's mostly about data collection. Like a guy selling a Playboy magazine to a 6-year-old, presumably he's not collecting data about them, right?
Okay, so you're just worried that a kid will get a hold of
if I show my ID to a guy and then he sells me a Playboy.
Okay, so it's a privacy issue for the consumer.
That's why, yeah, I'm against the privacy part of that.
I understand.
Right? And I think that that's just like related. It's intertwined with like free speech.
But how's that different than like Google knows my credit card number? How's that any different? Google knows where I live. You know the pay thing that Google has, Google Pay?
Yeah, Google Pay. Yeah, sure.
Like they know how old I
that.
am. They know where I live. They know my credit score. Like Google knows more about you probably than your own mother does.
That's true. Yes.
They know what you watch.
Yeah, they know some.
So where do you draw the line on this privacy thing?
But I mean, privacy law in America like doesn't exist really, for the most part. But I think that we could do a lot better on it. Like, I mean, draw the line. I mean, you signed up and you like consented to some terms of service, right? With Google.
Yeah.
So I don't have a problem
Okay,
with them.
let's take this to the pornography thing. If there was a consent, terms of service, and the consumer freely consents to it, do you still have a problem?
Consent to having their age verified?
And their ID and everything, yeah, out there?
I mean, yeah, no, I don't have an issue with that. Like,
Okay.
if a service wants to, like, you can put up a service that says, hey, let me, just download all your ID, like, information and just upload it here. And like, if someone willingly puts it in there, assuming it's not like a scam, or a phishing scheme. I guess I don't have an issue with that.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I'm on the same page as long as the consumers knows what they're getting into. But then my big concern is with this Utah law that you mentioned, that a 8-year-old will go into his dad's wallet, pull out his driver's license or credit card or whatever, steal it from his dad, and then use it to get on these porn websites. And his dad doesn't want even himself on these, let alone his kid. And so now he hasn't consented. But now this is just a family issue of not keeping an eye on your kids and not keeping your wallet safe.
But that's like, it should be a family issue, I think. I think the buck should stop a lot earlier. Like, it should be a family issue.
Yes. Yeah.
Keeping your 6-year-old off of porn websites. Like,
Yeah.
why is your 6-year-old?
But Democrats don't have families anyhow, so it's not really.
Oh my gosh. Come on.
Well, I know that that's not entirely true, but the reproduction rate for
Entirely true. It's just not true.
Well, but the point I'm making is Republicans reproduce more than Democrats.
Oh, that's what you mean.
Yeah.
Is it? I believe that. I don't know the data on it though.
Yeah. I can see if I can find it. But anyhow, anything else you want to talk about?
No, I just wanted to clarify why you think Republicans are freer speech. That was mostly it.
Yeah. And you remember my answer? Yeah, I talked about CRT, and then I even got rid of CRT, and I just talked about social
it's a long
media.
hypothetical. A lot of bloviation on it. Yeah.
Oh, no.
I'm kidding.
I mean, I think Democrats can disagree with me, but they can understand my position. That my position is that I am willing to risk more than they are. They are not willing to risk misinformation hurting people. I am, and I think that's the fundamental.
They wouldn't say that at a
difference.
federal. I don't think many would say that would be a government policy though. Like I think a lot of people who lean left would advocate for social media platforms regulating misinformation. I think a lot
themselves.
Of people, yes, platforms. I don't think that they would support. I think a lot of them.
And you know what?
Would support bills.
Yeah, I agree. And those Democrats, I would have no problem with. But my fear is because of what I'm saying, if it's true what I'm saying, that Democrats are more compassionate and they want to protect the little guy more than me. And that causes them to say, no, don't publish this. Don't publish that. Shh about ivermectin. Shh about vaccines. Causing autism. I mean, because that will cause harm in society. We shouldn't even give these guys the time of day. If that's how you think and you're left leaning and listening right now, I'm saying I'm against that. And
against that thinking.
Yeah, I'm against that thinking. And that's a fundamental difference. It's not right. You're not right. I'm not right. You're not wrong. I'm not wrong. This is a fundamental difference in what we value, what we perceive, what's best for the world. It's like the big government, small government issue. What's best? Everybody has their opinions on this. What's the role of government? Should they do X? No, they shouldn't do X. Should they do Y? Yes. No, they shouldn't do Y. Like these are just reasonable people can disagree.
Yeah, I do disagree, I think, with you.
That's fine. Life would be boring if people agreed with each other.
True.
Okay, thanks, Alex, for calling in.
All right, maybe see you at poker someday.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Definitely come back to poker.
I don't know how to play Omaha, so.
Oh, well, it's easy. I'll teach you.
Oh, so tempting. All right, I'll see you.
See. I'm going to see if I can find that data on reproduction rate by political party. I mean, the Mormons alone have to make that true, right? And Hispanics are probably 50-50 left and right. But Mormons are definitely right. Let's see what I got here. The conservative fertility advantage. The association between fertility rates and voting patterns was crystal clear. The figure below shows that the share of the country's vote won by President Trump versus the total fertility rates for that country from 2016 to 2019. So Donald Trump vote share, as that increases, the average total fertility rate, children born per woman, increases. There you go. R squared of 0.18. That's not too high. It's not a strong correlation, but it is a correlation. But you know, you don't even have to go that. You can go to exit polls. (2020) exit polls. Hispanics are conservative on social issues. Yeah, I agree. So we know through exit polling that if you're single, unmarried, you're more likely to vote left. We know from exit polls that if you're married, you will vote right. I hope this is not news to anyone. We also know that if you're female, you're more likely to vote left. If you're male, you're more likely to vote right. This is because the Democratic Party is the party of compassion and nurturing and love. And the Republican Party is the party of death and killing and destruction. So that just makes sense. I'm hyperbolizing. Keep your pants on. If you work full time, you're more likely to vote for. If you don't work full time, you're more likely to vote for Biden. This makes the Democrats look so bad. Abortion is a big issue. Like, look at that, 81, 72. That's the clear divider right there. Where's marital status? Did we pass it already? Yeah, here we go. If you're a married man, you vote right. If you're a married woman, you vote right, but less so. If you're unmarried, I wish they had, oh yeah, they have children here, good. Men with children vote Trump, women with children vote Biden, men no children still vote Trump, but women no children vote Biden. But that doesn't really answer my question of who reproduces more. If you're black, you vote Biden 90%. See, if I was a black person, which I am because I identify as black, this is so embarrassing. This is so incredibly embarrassing. Like, this reminds me of voting in Russia when Putin gets 95% support. It's like, you know something's wrong. Yeah, I'm judging. Okay, enough of that. Americans are broadly against abortion bans. That's true, Glenn. The right is playing with fire by pushing this hard. You might be right here, Glenn. But let's be very clear. The Supreme Court decision on abortion was not a ban. It was not a ban. One more time. It was not a ban. It was saying that abortion is not a federally protected right. That's different than saying it's a ban. So basically, it became a state issue. Abortion is not illegal in the United States. It's a state's issue. So when you say the left is winning on abortion, what you're really saying is people want access to abortion, and states that go against that are going to lose on that. It might push people in the left's direction, individual states. But is there states that are red that still have abortion clinics? I don't know the answer to that. I gotta look it up. Red states that allow abortion. RFK Jr. is pro-choice. Yeah. But I think I listened to his stance on abortion. It was very similar to mine. Like, my stance on abortion is that it should be illegal after the first trimester. But punishments, I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't know where to go with that. Except for cases of incest or rape, there should be exceptions. I think the 10 to 12 week range is a good one that even most European countries adhere to. And I think the rights, this is what really, okay, are you listening, people on the left, especially women? This is going to infuriate you. So I'm trying to help you not be too infuriated. But the rights of the mother go down as the rights of as the time in the uterus goes up. I know that causes women to go nuts, but I truly believe that your right as a mother, or your right to abort, goes down. Your bodily autonomy goes down. Your right to bodily autonomy goes down as the fetus develops in the uterus. And the thing is, I actually think the majority of the public agree with that. But I'm wording it in such a way that it sounds a little more drastic. Because who here, as a Democrat, says, yeah, month 6 abortion's fine? Very few people say that. Very, very few people say that. And that's very rare. But still, I don't know, is it probably less than 10% of the population would say, yeah, abort to month 9. Like, and there's some people say abort to year 2 out of the uterus. Yeah, you're right. 60%. I think it's even a little bit higher. I think it was a mistake. But the good news, Glenn, is teenage pregnancies and even the amount of abortions have been steadily dropping over the decades, right? What's the abortion rate, historical abortion rate? So I think part of the reason why it's not as bad as you might think, Glenn, is because it's becoming, as the decades go on, abortion is becoming less and less of an issue. Which is good, right? Like, even Democrats don't, very few of them say, I love abortions, I want another one, it felt good. Like, only crazy people talk like that. So as abortion rates go down, or as unwanted pregnancies go down, I should say, the need for abortion goes down. Yeah, I agree, Glenn. I already said that in cases of mother's life. Like, if my own wife was pregnant, and the doctor said, hey, it's either the baby or your wife, you gotta choose. I'll choose my wife. Let the baby die, even if it's in month 8. Why do I say that? And now I'm speaking to the right, the people who lean right. I say that with zero remorse, zero guilt, zero shame, because I have a 35, 33-year history with my wife. At best, I have a 6, 7, 8-month history with a fetus in a womb that I've only seen pictures through ultrasound. Plus, my wife has other kids. If it was a choice, who depend on her and who love her and who need her. So if you are a right-leaning woman listening right now, and you say, I'd be willing to give my life for my child, like I'd rather die than kill my baby in the womb, you are a selfish, crazy woman. And you probably only believe this because of religion. Stop it. You got a husband who loves you, children who need you. How selfish is it of you to give your life for that baby? It honestly, I'm getting emotional right now. This is so sick to me. You choose the life of the mother, not the infant. Unless you're a serial killer mother and it's better for the world for you to be gone anyhow. But see, the left love me now, right? The left are applauding. Now you're more open to hear other things I have to say. Oh, I've been meaning to do this for like a long time. Here we go. Let's get the left mad at me again. Actually, I don't even need to make this because it's audio only. But this is Seth Andrews talking about the movie Sound of Freedom. And I joked the other day that the way you get the left Democrats to watch this movie Sound of Freedom, tell them it's a movie about saving trans kids. And then they'll automatically go see it.
Working together for a more rational world.
Take the risk of thinking for yourself. Much more happiness, truth, beauty.
Indiana Jones and Insidious. I mean, for this indie movie, produced by Angel Studios, right? Seemed to come out of nowhere. I've seen billboards everywhere for it, and it is doing massive business. Over $40 million gross in the first 5 days, and it is the darling of American conservatives. The on-screen story of Tim Ballard. This is kind of a fictionalized version of what is supposed to be a true story, a real-life story. A former government...
Okay, that bothers me. This is a fictionalized movie that's supposed to be a true story. How many movies have you watched that says it's based on a true story and they take tremendous artistic liberties?
Agent is rescuing child victims all around the world. Jim Caviezel plays the lead. Tim Ballard, the character, is a real-life guy. He is a former Homeland Security agent, and back in 2013, he founded Operation Underground Railroad, or OUR. And this organization apparently conducts sting operations around the world to rescue kids from sex traffickers. And Tim Ballard has been featured on media everywhere, from ESPN to Fox News and Prince, and he was actually appointed to an anti-trafficking advisory position by Donald Trump during the Trump administration. But already, if we look into Tim Ballard, things start...
See, I'm being honest with people on the left right now. This is what bothers me. It's like, oh, this guy has some type of association with Trump, so therefore he's evil and bad. This really bothers me. And I see this happening more on the left than the right. It happens on the right, but more on the left, in my opinion. Like, you can't associate... You can't think highly of this guy if he has anything to do with Trump.
Hard to get really sticky. Investigators have looked into Operation Underground Railroad, OUR, and they are worried that most of the organization's claims have been pretty much impossible to fact check. So they come forward with all of these heroic tales of running in and grabbing the kids and whisking them out to safety and helping them to rehabilitate.
So if it's impossible to fact check, that does not mean that they're not facts.
They might be true, but unfortunately...
You got to take more of an induction type argument that what's more likely to be true. This is what I do with Christianity, right? You can't prove that Jesus didn't rise from the dead. But what's more likely?
Fortunately, there's no way to verify if they are true. The practices are not known. The success stories cannot be vetted or verified. Many people are suspicious that OUR is actually building an image, right? Tim Ballard, hero, legend, is sort of building his legacy on an organization. And so they go in, make up stories, exaggerate stories. What's going on there? We certainly don't know, but there's reason to be genuinely suspicious. And of course, the second you begin to ask questions, critics who are emotionally charged, and it's understandable, over this legitimate, horrifying human rights nightmare, child sex trafficking. Yes, it happens. Yes, it's rampant. Yes, we must be made aware. In that context, I actually think a movie like Sound of Freedom is a good idea. But here's the thing. If you start to ask questions about this specific film, Who is behind the scenes? Is there a subtext that is linked to a bunch of different conspiracies and stories that aren't rooted in the data? Is this problematic, right? Is this...
This is exactly what I was talking about earlier. Is this problematic? Is there a subtext? Are these idiot human beings being manipulated to believe these weird conspiracy theories or whatever because they're not smart enough to think for themselves? Newsflash, over 50% of the United States believe in heaven and hell, angels and demons. Just accept it that people believe crazy things. Once you've accepted that, then watching this movie is going to be much easier for you. If you're an atheist listening, I know the theists listening, well, of course angels exist. Of course there's the devil.
Is something that is not sound, wearing the veneer of a legitimate problem in this world, child sex trafficking. If you stop, for many people, if you stop and start to ask these types of questions, they will turn on you. Who could ever criticize a film that is ringing the alarm bell against child sex traffickers? Are you yourself a pedophile? I've seen this already on Twitter. Hey, pedo, why in the world would you ever criticize this wonderful, noble message?
Yeah, well, it's a legitimate question, right? What is the real motive for criticizing this movie if its core intention, the movie's intention, is to stop child trafficking, to say child trafficking is bad, to get people more motivated to stop child trafficking in any way they can? What is the problem? It's a legitimate question. And is the criticism of this movie more because you just don't like conservatives that much? You just don't like QAnon that much? You just feel sorry and don't want people caught up in these weird, crazy ideas? Is that the real motive?
And this is really sticky, because I think it's important to understand what's going on under the hood. Who are these people? Investigators have looked in to Operation Underground Railroad. They are hearing stories that aren't really true. Here's an example. There was the story of a victim. She goes by the name Liliana. And when she was 14 years old in Mexico, she was wooed and taken in by this man, this older man. And he introduced her to his family, and he said he loved her, and she was totally smitten, right? He seduced this child as her boyfriend, and then they got into the United States.
See, yeah, he goes on to talk about this story. But my question is, let's assume it's all false, all made up. I mean, just view it as a fictional movie then. Does it really bother? Like, if this was anything, I don't know, a movie about transgender people and a story was made up, but the core of the movie is to help support and be tolerant of transgender people. But one story, not totally made up, but the facts were, not true. Instead of 14 years old, it was 12. Instead of living here, it was living there. Instead of one person coming in to say the transgender, it was 3. I mean, are you really going to moan about it? If it's an issue that you really love? This is what I don't get about Seth Andrews here.
If Trump's wall had been there, Liliana's abductor would have had to get her through legitimate entry points at the border, and she could have been saved. There's another story about an OUR operative. This one.
Yeah, no, he's giving another story of where he thinks that, does truth matter, asked TJ Stex. Yes, it does matter. But I think it's very reasonable to think that every movie maker, even if it's based on a true story, takes artistic liberties. Because let's be honest, fantasy is always better than reality. So if you can take something based on a true story and make it more interesting, it's more interesting. I don't know what the opening credits say in this movie. If it says based on a true story, or if it says, is this supposed to be a documentary? I don't think so. Is it being marketed as a documentary? I don't think so. I think it's being marketed as a movie.
closely examined. $2,700,000 plus were said to have been used to assist law enforcement in freeing sex slaves and providing aftercare for victims in North Africa and the Middle East. The descriptions were vague and broad, and many of the law enforcement organizations in question say they don't really work much at all with OUR. Instead of being signed.
You hear what he said? They don't really work much at all, which is different than saying we don't work with them.
By side and shoulder to shoulder, it looks like many of these organizations may have just grazed by them along the way. Other reputable child advocacy and aftercare organizations say they don't even know who OUR is. Public records request to New York State's Office of Victim Services returned 0 documents mentioning Tim Ballard's organization. The United States Department of Criminal Justice Services could not confirm any elements of his claims, and they said that the office had no relationship with OUR. The state-funded response to human trafficking program said...
This is the same type of outrage that I see guys like Rationality Rules have against like Dennis Prager. It's like, oh, he made it look like this article, this thing came from this article. I mean, he's just like so lying and so manipulative. And like, the only thing I can... It's this deep hatred against people who oppose you politically. We can't confirm this, therefore what? Nobody said they even heard this guy, so therefore what? He's lying? Are you making that accusation? That he's a flat-out liar? Okay, if you're going to accuse someone of being this movie flat-out lying, you got to provide evidence of that. What's your evidence? Well, you admitted that we don't have evidence one way or the other. We can't confirm it. So if you can't confirm it, you just can't come out and imply that this is lying. That's reasonable, right? If I tell you I used to work for Bill Gates directly back in the 80s, late 80s, me and Bill Gates hung out in a garage. But I told you there's no evidence of this. Would you feel free to accuse me of lying? I got Bill Gates on my speed dial. You want to see it?
They didn't even know who this organization was. And finally, if there is a child trafficking rescue case in the United States, the Office of Refugee Resettlement is almost always involved in the safekeeping and the relocation of survivors. The U.S. Committee for Refugees and Immigrants would also likely be involved. The Department of... Look, he is played on screen in The Sound of Freedom by another conspiracy theorist, the actor Jim Caviezel. And we know Jim Caviezel because he...
Yeah, see, this is exactly what I was talking about before.
He played Jesus in a lucrative movie.
We cannot listen to conspiracy theorists. They're dangerous. They lead children astray. This comes out more from the left than the right, I think.
For detail, but since I haven't actually seen the film, right, I'm going to wait. I'm not going to buy a ticket. I'm going to wait and stream it. I wanted to read for you an article by someone who has seen the film. Miles Klee wrote a July 7th article for Rolling Stone. I'm just going to read the whole thing for you here. Obligatory spoiler alert, in case you want to be surprised when you see the film. And here we go. The article is titled, Sound of Freedom is a superhero movie for dads with brainworms. The article says this. Based on a true story, I heard from someone.
Based on a true story. Okay. Sounds like I was right.
Where across the theater, the familiar word.
Based on a true story. Does that mean everything in the story has to be true? Factually true? Historically true? Democrats, be honest with yourselves and answer that question. If a movie starts with based on a true story, does that mean everything in it has to be factually, historically true? If you're honest with yourselves and you don't care, you're going to say, no, you can take artistic liberties. Everything in there does not have to be historically or factually true if something's based on a true story. That's very reasonable. So why is so many people... their underwear in a knot here?
had appeared on screen, and an elderly man had taken it upon himself to read them aloud to the rest of a sizable audience seated for a matinee showing of the anti-child trafficking thriller Sound of Freedom starring Jim Caviezel. For the seasoned moviegoer, this phrase is a joke. We know that cinema will stretch almost any truth to the breaking point.
Yeah, we know cinema does this. This is widely accepted as art. So what's the big deal?
And the rank insincerity of such a pronouncement is the foundation of the prankish opening titles of Fargo. But this crowd, I could tell, would view the events depicted over the next 2+ hours as entirely literal.
What?
Caviezel, best known for being tortured to death in Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ, has become a prominent...
Does the movie claim that everything in it is perfectly literal?
...figure on the conspiracist right, giving speeches and interviews in which he hints at an underground holy war between patriots and a sinister legion of evildoers who are harvesting the blood of children. It's straight-up QAnon stuff, right down to his use of catchphrases like, "The storm is upon us." Here he gets to act.
TJ Stacks, I would love to see where you got that. If you post a link, I might be able to see it, and then I can bring it back out.
Operator as a Batman-style savior for kids sold into the sex trade. Ballard himself has dabbled in Q-adjacent conspiracy theories, such as the Wayfair trafficking hoax. By the way, I got to stop here.
Is QAnon mentioned in the movie?
Ballard once said that he suspected that Wayfair was involved in the trafficking of children when they weren't selling furniture. Okay. While his organization has far-right affinities and a long record of distorting its botched, quote-unquote...
See, hear me out, people on the left. You hear what Seth Andrews is doing here, right? Here we got this movie, and he's associating it with QAnon conspiracy theories and the far right. Bad, right? Therefore, movie bad.
Raids, which rely on bizarre tactics like asking psychics where to find victims for rescue. Ballard, Caviezel, and others of their ilk had primed the public to accept Sound of Freedom as a documentary rather than delusion by fomenting moral panic for years over this grossly exaggerated epidemic of child sex trafficking.
Grossly exaggerated epidemic of sex trafficking. Like, imagine if I was to say that about transgender. Grossly exaggerated problem. I mean, how many transgenders are in the United States? Oh, sorry, I shouldn't say transgenders. Transgender people in the United States. They get mad if I say transgenders. It's like saying the Jews. Although I love the Jews. That's not hate speech if you put the word love in front of it. Like, I mean, it's such a small issue. Like, greatly exaggerated the deaths of transgender people in the United States. That's what he's doing here. Greatly exaggerated deaths or child trafficking. Or he's quoting Vice.
Much of it funneling people into conspiracist rabbit holes and QAnon communities. In short, I was at the movies with people who were there to see their worst fears confirmed. Sound of Freedom lives up to that anticipation. It's a stomach-turning experience, fetishizing the torture of its child victims and lingering over lush preludes to their sexual abuse.
You can say that about Quentin Tarantino films with the violence he uses. I love Quentin Tarantino.
It's a stomach-turning experience, fetishizing the torture of its child victims and
remove child victims and put other type of victims, and you're describing Tarantino films.
Lingering over lush preludes to their sexual abuse. At times, I had the uncomfortable sense that I might be arrested myself just for sitting through it. Nonetheless, the mostly white-haired audience around me could be relied on to gasp, moan in pity.
Yeah, this is mostly white-haired. It's like Vice is so cisphobic. I'm going to, appeal to the left here because, they like to use phobic words. This commentary from Vice is so cisphobic, so white-phobic, so Christian-phobic. I mean, where's their tolerance? You're saying they can't feel things, feel this anger against child trafficking? How dare they? I mean, is it wrong for a white cis man to sit in this theater while eating his popcorn and feel like a patriotic hero and saying, amen, we should get rid of this child sex trafficking? Like, what are we talking about here? And yes, I love Tarantino. And if you don't love Tarantino, I'm going to get Myron to block you.
Mutter condemnations, applaud and bellow amen at moments of righteous fury, as when Ballard declares that, quote, God's children are not for sale. They were entranced by what they clearly took for a searing expose, not even the occasional nasty coughing fit, and we had no shortage of those, could break the spell. At the outset, we are introduced to Caviezel as Ballard, working for the Department of Homeland Security as part of the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. He takes down purveyors of child pornography, but is haunted by the knowledge that the actual victims are beyond his grasp. Meanwhile, a father in Honduras entrusts his young daughter and son to a woman who claims she can set them.
Yes, exactly right, Costa Kim Productions. It's like, if anyone should understand theater, it is the left. And theater is supposed to conjure up these emotions. But it seems like some people on the left don't conjure up emotions of patriotism, because patriotism, bleh. Don't conjure up emotions of feeling like masculinity and going to save helpless children is good, because, you know, toxic masculinity is bleh. By the way, I'm going to pause it here. If atheists are not careful, atheists who lean left, I mean, they're going to create more theists. Like, people are so disgusted by this sort of thing. Like, I honestly think that if your goal is to deconvert theists, I'm going to win hands down over you liberal, left-leaning atheists. Because you guys are just preaching to the choir. I'm bringing people together. I got left and right listening to me. I got Christians and atheists listening to me. I'm bound. I tick off and I got atheists hating me. I got Christians hating me. I got Christians loving me. I got atheists loving me. I say things that will cause people to be enraged with me 1 second and then agree with me the next. That doesn't happen with guys like Seth Andrews. The thing is, I would love to talk to him, actually. I think he's more like me than he lets on, because I know he's older. I bet you there's a lot of things we agree on together politically. But the problem is, he needs this. I think. I could be wrong. He's older, so maybe he has enough saved up by now. I don't know. But he needs the Thinking Atheist YouTube channel, his podcast, his gigs to go to events. And if he were to start talking like me, he would lose a huge percentage of his following. And he doesn't want to do that. Whereas I don't care. I honestly don't care. In fact, I'll give you some insight on my other channel. I love predicting before I go on a show. I tell myself, I'm going to talk about this and this, and I bet I'm going to lose 20 subs today. And I try to hit that target of losing subs. And then, sure enough, I look at my analytics, this video. Yes, nailed it. Lost 20 subs here. And then I say, okay, today, this live stream, I'm going to just talk purely about this apologist that all the atheists hate. And it's going to go up by, 20 subs this day. Yep, nailed it. I can just manipulate my sub count whenever I want. Which means I can manipulate you. Don't let me manipulate you. Oops.
Every moment, his target tries to cross. Lucky. Earlier, Ballard convinces an imprisoned child porn peddler facing a sentence of 30 years to help him contact traffickers in exchange for an immunity deal, needlessly posing as a pedophile himself to gain trust. When the guy fulfills his end of the bargain, Ballard has a dozen police officers swarm the diner they're in to arrest him again? Wait, how was he sprung from custody in the first place? Doesn't matter, as long as the drooling creep with requisite glasses and pervert mustache gets his head slammed against a table once more. The same muddled approach is taken to Ballard's later, more sensational busts, which is certainly in keeping with the way OUR embellishes and misrepresents their internal missions, according to a Vice News investigation of the group. Then you have Caviezel, bleached blonde to match Ballard's buff, clean-cut Mormon profile. Performance-wise, he's stuck.
It makes it sound like that's a bad thing to be clean cut. It makes it sound like it's a bad thing to be beach blonde and buff. Is that bad?
On a note of world historical grief, either crying or staring with bloodshot eyes as he attempts to convey the scale and weight of the tragedy before him. The unambiguous hero of the piece, Ballard invokes parenthood as his motivation, or an argument to get the cooperation he wants. Quote, "What if it was your daughter?" is practically his catchphrase. Yet aside from a dialogue-free breakfast scene, he never interacts with his offspring.
Is he saying you shouldn't use emotional manipulation? But the transgender are going to kill themselves. Highest risk of suicide. Yeah, no appeals to emotion.
And if Mira Sorvino, who plays his wife Catherine, spent more than a day on set, you'd never know it. She's there for all of 2 minutes, offering brief words of encouragement, while Ballard spends weeks undercover as a louche sex tourist in Central America. She, too, evidently had a personal news now. On a different thread, someone attempted to prove that Donald Trump's endorsement of the film on Truth Social.
I'm trying, people on the left, I'm trying to go through this and listen to it, but it's just more of the same. Trump bad, therefore movie bad because so-and-so associated. QAnon bad, this movie has associations with QAnon, bad. White hair people, bleach blonde people, bad. I mean, I'm going to go see the movie with Tom Cruise. What's it called? The one coming out. Everybody, you guys know he's a Scientologist, right? What's the name of that movie? Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2. I'm going to go support Scientology this weekend, probably. Are you guys against that? Me supporting Scientology? Because I think one of the big fears that people have with this movie, this freedom movie, is that if you go see it, you're supporting QAnon, you're supporting conspiracy theories, you're supporting guys who are not on the level that might use this money for not good things. How much money is Tom Cruise going to donate to the Scientology church after Mission Impossible money starts rolling in? I mean, once you go down this road, be consistent, people on the left. Don't go see the Tom Cruise movie if you're worried about money being funneled to bad ideas, bad organizations. Like, to me, this is sick. Like, I had my sister who passed away from MS. She used to believe in so many crazy things, like certain symbols on cereal boxes represent Satan, and oh, that T-shirt was made in this country that serves Satan. And I mean, at some point, you just got to live your life. If this movie conjures up emotion, and the bottom line is it makes you repulsed against child sex trafficking, it's accomplished its goal. It made you feel something. I am mostly dead inside, but I go to movies, I go to musicals with the intent to feel stuff because I don't feel things easily. And if this movie can do it for me, I am actually scared it's going to do it too much for me because I'm a father. And that's part of the reason why I don't want to see it, because I know it's going to be too gut-wrenching for me. But I'm the type of guy who will allow myself to cry, to feel when people on the left use their talents to entertain me. People on the left, they entertain the people on the right through the arts. Good point. Actually, Polanski movies, they still love him, even though he was a child predator probably, and same with Michael Jackson. How many people here turn off the radio when a Michael Jackson song comes on? Or are you totally convinced he's innocent of all charges? I sound like a woman right now? Well, I said about an hour ago that I was a woman. Remember? I looked up into the heavens and I declared myself a woman. Okay, last chance. If someone wants to quickly hop in for 5 minutes, you can. I'm going to start the music. I'll stop the music if someone wants to jump in and say something. Other than that, I'm going to go eat out with my family. Family fun night every Friday. Where I spend quality time with my kids. I spend quality time with my kids every day. I spend at least, 2 hours a day with my kids. Quality time. Going for walks, talking, playing games. Quality time. I have lowered the risk of my kids having mental health problems, being criminals, being unemployed, by being a good father. I encourage everyone here who is a father to do the same. Spend quality time with your kids. By doing so, you benefit all society. For those of you who have impregnated a woman and are not a father, shame on you. You've increased the chance your kid's going to be messed up, depressed, anxious, doing crime. Bad. I'm ranting now, but this success of a child is more determined by the father than the mother. I'm uplifting men right now because I think in today's society they're put down so much, but you are important. I mean, tremendously important. So go spend time with your kids, quality time, and know that because you're doing so, you're helping all society. And if you are a young man whose father didn't do that to you, this is probably the most important advice I can give you. Think twice before having kids. If there's a history in your family of mistreatment, abuse, of your father not being there for you, don't let the cycle continue. Don't repeat the mistakes of your father. What else can I rant about? Actually, you know what? Most of society's ills, the problems of society, is solved right there if men were to be better fathers. I honestly believe that, and I think the science and the data support everything I just said. Mental health problems. You have an active father in the home from a very young age, reduces the risk of mental health problems. Reduces the risk of dropping out of high school, reduces the risk of teenage pregnancy, reduces the risk of crime, increases the chance of the child having an identity, knowing who they are through traditions, through family fun nights, that sort of thing. This is church right now. And when it comes to marriage, happiness is overrated. You are committed to your partner. If your partner, if your wife or your husband does things you don't like, you can talk to them about it, but suck it up, for goodness sake. Don't feel that your partner or your husband, wife has to always make you happy. Come on, grow up. If you have kids in the family, your mission is to raise productive members of society. So do it. Don't get divorced because, oh, you just had an argument. Come on. Your kids depend on you. Amen. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Poof. Thanks for hanging out. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.